Justice Show, presented by American Experiment, is live at 6 a.m. for a Monday morning. Right now, enjoy the AI Overlords.
Well, she's married to a rich white man now. He was her campaign manager somehow. Used to be married to her brother. Now she's his mother. Her name is Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar. You can find her up in Congress with her homies in the squad. Well, she represents Minnesota. I know she never goes there. She represents Minnesota. I know she never goes there. I know she never goes there. They found some harvested ballots in a suitcase in the back of a car. So tell me how you gotta let you represent. Tell me who you are. You represent. I know Minnesota. I know you never go there. You represent Minnesota. I know you never go there. I know you never go there. You never go there. You're married to a rich white man now. Was he your campaign manager somehow? Used to be married to your brother. Is he still your brother? You're married to a rich white man now. Was he your campaign manager somehow? Used to be married to your brother. Is he still your brother?
The John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment, is live at 6 a.m. this morning. Enjoy more of the AI Overlords.
They once shook hands in the neon glow, building empires with the money flow. But the bill came due and the numbers lied. Elon turned, said I can't abide. Oh, the rockets crashed and the tweets did burn. From golden towers to bridges turned. No electric dreams, no deals to mend. They'll never be great again, my friend. Trump said, Elon, you've lost your spark. Your future's dim, your cars won't start. Pulled the plug on the electric game. Elon shouted back, you're to blame. Oh, the rockets crashed and the tweets did burn. From golden towers to bridges turned. No electric dreams, no deals to mend. They'll never be great again, my friend. From the red hats to the SpaceX flight, their bond collapsed in a single night. shake, no more trading schemes, just the silence of broken dreams. Oh, the rockets crashed and the tweets did burn, from golden towers to bridges turned. No electric dreams, no deals to mend, they'll never be great again, my friend.
Sydney hit the screen in den, blonde and smiling, clean and bright. American Eagle lit the fire, and the woke crowd cried all night. Said this looks too perfect, dangerous, too symmetrical, too white. While the market just kept climbing, 'cause those jeans were fitting right. Doesn't ever make it stop. Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Guess that's all she had to do. Wear some pants, say thanks, my mama, then watch Twitter melt in two.
Yeah, Warrior. Karen walks in with a confident sway, hair like a muppet on a bad hair day. Behind the makeup painted on her eyes, her resting bitch face says don't even try. She's got the mic and the room goes still. All hail the queen of Capitol Hill, not the brightest bulb, but she's black and queer. Trapped in the headlights like a white-tailed deer. She lied for a living when she knew the truth. She could have dropped a dime in a telephone booth. Her vacation, but her smile's on cue. Korean wants a job with Whoopi on The View. Yeah, yeah, na 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 na. When she's asked if there's something wrong, she flips through a binder for the latest song. She looks so cute and sings like a bird, but don't you believe one single word. Behind the podium she builds a disguise, a master of spin with a wink in her eyes. They ask for the facts, she gives them a play. Corinne's in control, it's her kind of ballet. She lied for a living when she knew the truth. She could have dropped a dime in a telephone booth. Her brain's on vacation, but her smile's on cue. Korean wants a job, Whoopi on The View. Yeah, yeah, la 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 la. She lied for a living when she knew the truth. She could have dropped a dime in a telephone booth. Her brain's on vacation, but her smile's on cue. Korean wants a job with Whoopi on The View. Oh, oh, oh. Korean wants a job with Whoopi on The View. Oh, oh, oh. Korean wants a job with Whoopi on The View. He speaks through static waves at dawn, a voice that lingers when night is gone. Twin cities hum with stories spun. John Justice rides the rising sun. Seeing the fizz in a plastic cup. Star Wars dreams keep lifting him up. Costco aisles his sacred ground, where neon shadows spinning around. Embark on journeys in the stars, a galaxy of hope and scars. With every word a world takes flight. Justice writes in the cosmic night. The microphone is saber bright, cuts through the noise, ignites the fight. In his fortress of fluorescent beams, he crafts reality from dreams.
It's the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment and AmericanExperiment.org. And welcome to the Monday edition of the show. Remember, you can listen live at AmericanExperiment.org, also on the MixLR app, where you can get caught up on the podcast, and you can watch the show at MN Think Tank on X, also on Facebook and YouTube at the Center of the American Experiment pages. My name is, of course, John Justice, and joining me is producer Devin this morning. Good morning, Devin. How was your weekend?
It was very good. How was your weekend?
I was very busy. I was here quite a bit. I was here on Saturday and Sunday for a very good reason. So continuing to work out the bugs in the system. I'm pleased to say that I believe that we have. So totally worth it. But yeah, it was a great weekend. Great weekend. My drivers didn't do very well in the NASCAR race yesterday. That's okay. I don't let it upset me. Excited for this week and the primary coming up on Tuesday, and a lot of guests this morning regarding the primary. We'll get to that in just a moment. So yesterday, I'm doing prep for the show. I'm on Facebook, and I'm just kind of perusing things, and I came across a post from a former program director back when I was working in music radio at X103.9 KCXX in Riverside, San Bernardino, California. This former program director, Kelly Cloquet, she'd bounced around a bit, but had eventually landed at a competitive, at the time when I was working there, 1996, 97, 98. This was one of the first places that I worked in my radio career. She was working for the crosstown, relatively short drive, but rock station called KCAL. KCAL's been there forever. It's been a staple in the Inland Empire. That's the region that they call it for decades. KCXX has long since gone away. It's funny, all these radio stations I used to work at that no longer exist anymore. This station, though, had been still doing its thing all these years later on. And I have a few friends that work there, not only the former program director, but another radio host, John DeSantis, who worked there, and several other people just from my time working for the alternative rock station, because we all worked at that station as well. The reason I bring it up is because her post was talking about how she was saying goodbye to everybody. I'm like, I wonder if she's leaving the industry. No. She's not leaving the industry. That radio station, some 40 some odd years it'd been there. They unceremoniously fired their entire staff and have now gone fully automated. I wasn't surprised, but still my eyes just went wide going, oh my gosh. Yeah, this is where things are heading. It reminded me how incredibly grateful and blessed that I am, that I have this job, and how, I feel like this is the future of where things are going relating to terrestrial radio. And that's another example. It's going to be a slow turnover for terrestrial radio. I still believe that there are formats, especially when it comes to sports, that are viable and are going to remain viable for a while. But, the clusters surrounding those particular shows are going to shrink smaller and smaller and smaller. And again, it reminded me why I was, it was like the best thing that could have happened to me. If you listened to the launch show for this show here at Center of the American Experiment, I told the story in detail of what had happened to me over the previous employer and how it really ended up being a blessing in disguise in a very short period of time. And this story that I saw yesterday was certainly a reminder of that. It's just wild to me. I never imagined that I would be involved in an industry and be doing the job within that industry for as long as I am, to see this type of wholesale change take place. The good news is, though, is that I hope other people and other hosts who want to continue to do what it is that they're doing are able to go and branch out and take advantage of the emerging technologies and how people are going and consuming their news through different outlets. It's not an easy thing of what we pulled off here. We've talked about that a lot, but if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. And I still firmly believe in that story that I saw yesterday of this. Again, this was a famous, just outside of Los Angeles, but in that region, this was a massive radio station. And I don't know how they end up surviving being fully automated like this moving forward.
Hi, John. I was just wondering, are they really going to be able to go moderated or automated? Because people like me won't listen to it. And if there's no listening base, what value is there to an automated radio station? Just thinking, it probably won't work, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know what the model's going to be for this. I really don't. I mean, essentially, you are providing a random playlist on a terrestrial radio stream with no ability to go and connect with the audience at all because you have no live hosts. My guess is that this is a precursor to a move in the future wherein a lot of these companies are going to spin off and sell off their terrestrial radio signals and just maybe I need to spend a post show talking about this so I don't wipe out too hard on a Monday morning, because I do want to take what I'm talking about now and apply it to what's going on today, because I do have a reason why I'm bringing this up this morning. But my guess is you're going to see this cycle take place. You're going to see a lot of these large corporations. There's rumors of my former employer being bought out by a major satellite company like Sirius XM, and the potential of them going and dumping all of the subscriber content onto the terrestrial radio signals simply to go and advertise the subscription service that they already offer. And I think on a long enough timeline, what you'll see is a lot of these terrestrial signals, they'll end up going back to how it used to be. I think eventually what you'll see is a desire to use these signals at the local level and smaller groups catering to smaller communities with these signals, wherein, corporations have obviously come in, gobbled up a lot of these signals. They've gone and they've branched out and they've done voice tracking across the country and syndication. But as we see this changeover of terrestrial radio, my guess is they'll probably be dumping grounds for product that aren't going to make a lot of money. And then on a long enough timeline, those signals will be sold off to other companies that'll bring back truly local radio. But in the interim, you're going to see this change. I mean, this is just the beginning, in my opinion. And like I said, why I feel so blessed to be doing this job. And the good news is you're already seeing, like within talk radio and the political sphere, those candidates running for office, are immediately identifying the places that they need to go to let their voices be heard, especially ahead of tomorrow and primary day here in Minnesota. And to that point, we do have Andrew Langer, the president of the Institute for Liberty. He'll, of course, be joining us coming up just after 6:30 this morning. We're going to talk a lot about the Democrat Socialists of America, the continued takeover of the Democrat Party, audio from over the weekend from prominent members of the Democrat Party embracing these Democrat socialists. In the 7 o'clock hour, lawyer extraordinaire will make his first appearance on the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment. Of course, he was a staple on my previous show. Jeff O'Brien will be joining us as Lamy Klobuchar attempts to take claim for a change in the hemp restrictions and rules at the federal level that would have been devastating to businesses here in Minnesota. Jeff O'Brien's going to join us to talk about how Amy really shouldn't be trying to take credit for any of this because she really didn't have anything to do with it. Then after that, we have gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth. She'll be on the couch here in the American Experiment Studios. That'll be at 7:30. Coming up at 8 o'clock, a Senate candidate, Michelle Tafoya, will take over after the seat was warmed by Lisa Demuth on the couch here at the center of the American Experiment Studios. Also, coming up at 8:30 this morning, candidate for the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, Diane Krentz, will also be joining us on the couch here this morning. So it is a packed show for a Monday ahead of tomorrow's primary. Of course, throughout the entirety of today's show. If you want to email me, john.justice@americanexperiment.org, or you can leave us a blast on the blaster line, 612-584-4565. That's the number if you want to leave a comment for any point throughout the show this morning.
Hey, John, good morning. So I don't know if today you're looking to do predictions. That would be fun. But if you wanted to only talk about the Democrats because you don't want to put your thumb on the scale, today on the news for the first time I heard Angie Craig was ahead of Peggy Flanagan, which I don't necessarily consider good news. And I'm hoping if Bill steal it, I definitely think Peggy is the one we want to run against. So just curious. Bye.
Yeah, no, I would tend to agree with that assessment. I also saw that same polling. In terms of predictions, I don't know if I want to do any predictions or not. I don't know. Is it worth it for me to do predictions? Does it matter if I do predictions? The problem with doing predictions is that, there's a chance you could be wrong. And I don't come off as smart as I'd like to think. Honestly, right now, the races are also close, apart from the Senate race. I think Michelle Tafoya is on the Republican side. I think Michelle Tafoya is in a pretty good position. That prediction, I feel fairly confident in. But everything else, dude, I really don't know. It all depends on turnout. We had the conversation on Friday with the Freedom Friday crew, and A.K. Kamara laid out, really succinctly the scenario in terms of voter turnout, what kind of impact that's going to have on these potential races. And so really, without knowing what the voter turnout is going to be, it's really difficult to sort of weigh in on, who exactly is going to pull off the nomination for the gubernatorial race on the GOP side. Foregone conclusion of Amy Klobuchar, obviously, and certainly the Senate race for Democrats. Let's go back to the blaster line this morning here on the John Justice Show.
Good morning, John. If you are interviewing any governors, I was wondering if you could ask them what they think about the Met Council or what they're going to do about it. They are an awfully strong organization without being voted in. Thanks for it. Have a good day.
You know what, Lori? I'm writing that down right now. If you're watching at MN Think Tank on X or on Facebook or YouTube, you can actually see me doing that right now. So when Lisa Damonth joins us coming up at 7:30 this morning, I will absolutely ask her that question. I'm curious as well. We haven't talked about the Met Council a lot, even though the Met Council has been a topic of discussion in years past. They've kind of flown under the radar, mostly because they haven't done anything really stupid as of late. That being said, they're sort of always in a constant state of stupidity. So maybe I shouldn't use that as an excuse. Before we take a quick break and get you up to speed on some commentary that you might have missed from Center of the American Experiment, I want to share this from over the weekend. A lot of individuals, myself included, have called into question Joe Biden and his cancer diagnosis going back to the presidential campaign, and the fact that we hadn't heard about it ever since it was originally brought up. Well, President Joe Biden's prostate cancer has apparently, at least according to Hunter Biden, metastasized into his bones and even further. Hunter Biden shared the news in an interview on the BBC Friday, saying the cancer has spread. It's gone to his bones and further. It's very painful. It's very debilitating in many respects. Biden said, Hunter said the diagnosis has been hard on his family. It's really sad to watch, he continued. The only thing that I'd say about my dad, about his health right now, is I wish he would complain more because it's not good. Hunter Biden said his father remains out there speaking publicly about the issues that are important to him. He's still doing his thing. He still believes in this country. Look, despite your opinions of Joe Biden, I certainly have my own. I pray for him and his health. It's, to see anybody have to go through that, I don't care who they are. It's tragic. I don't wish cancer upon anybody, regardless of political affiliation. From a more political standpoint, I do find it interesting going back to Kamala Harris taking over during that election, after that disastrous June 27th, 2024 debate. But one of the things that, as I was doing my notes this morning, reading up about Biden's cancer spreading, I was just thinking in my head, well, what if the what ifs if Kamala wasn't replaced, if Biden did run against Trump, and if Biden were to have won and he were dealing with this now. All of it underscores what so many of us had already thought, that Joe Biden shouldn't have ran the last time. He wasn't in the right mental or physical health when he was running, when he ran and campaigned and won, doing that thing with my fingers against Trump the first time. And the reason for pitching him off and bringing Kamala on was certainly the ramifications of that debate, but ultimately it was his health. That finally the rest of America woke up to what everybody else had already seen of Joe Biden. So that being said, I wish for Joe Biden's health that he would stop going out and doing things. I don't think, not that I want to help the Democrat Party, but I don't think he's necessarily helping the Democrat Party. I don't think he's really necessarily helping anybody. And at this point, based off of his diagnosis, he probably would be better served writing, again with my fingers, his book, and enjoying the time that he has left with his friends and family. All right. Ahead of my conversation with Andrew Langer, the president of the Institute for Liberty, Sophie Cunningham got smacked during a WNBA game over the weekend. Devin, did you see the footage on this?
I don't believe I did.
Okay. I'd be curious to get, if you have a chance and you can watch it. She just got clobbered. The only argument that I have with regard to what happened is this type of physical contact within the WNBA, it's pretty common. So, it's hard because you see Sophie Cunningham and all the controversy surrounding her within the league, and then she gets nailed the way that she did, and you want to go and chalk it up to being, targeted. When at the same time, the women in the WNBA they're jumping all over each other all the time. We'll give you the latest, though, because despite whether or not it was intentional or not, the commentary surrounding the aftermath of this physical contact during the game is absolutely ridiculous. On the heels of that, former NBA players, including Senate candidate Royce White, of which I have some thoughts on, are testing the WNBA's policies by declaring for the women's 2027 draft, which apparently has caused the WNBA to go into emergency mode. They are supposed to be going behind closed doors to have a meeting on exactly what a woman is. I can't believe that we're even debating this issue, but nevertheless, here we are. All right, reach out to the show, 612-584-4565. Leave us a blast. We'll share those comments coming up. And you can email me, john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
There is certainly a culture at the City Council and at the Mayor's office, again, over the last 10 years, that has just not been willing to hire police officers. And we have seen rhetoric and action that has very much been about defunding the police. We filed a petition called a writ of mandamus, which is basically a Latin word for we command, where we're asking the court to hold the mayor to his duty and hire those police officers. And we have tried to detail in our court papers the real world effect this has on people, including our brave clients who've come forward and put their name on court papers and who've experienced everything from bullet holes in their houses to family members who've been struck by a vehicle and in a hit and run, never solved, to personal vandalism at their homes and property where they've had property stolen, to murder in their neighborhoods where they don't feel safe, they don't feel protected, they literally feel they cannot go out at night. Because we challenged it on behalf of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, and we said this is a violation of the single subject and title clause of the Minnesota Constitution. We are challenging this one section on behalf of our clients, the binary trigger clause, which had to do with how you define a trigger that can, with one pull, fire off multiple shots.
And that's just mashed into this 1,400 page thing, right?
Yes, that covers everything from health, higher education, firearms, energy, agriculture, human services, health, and paid leave. Not a single subject. The court in August of 2025 struck down the bill and severed basically one provision relating to the binary triggers. Judge Castro had some interesting words for this, and he said, out of respect for precedent favoring severance, I'm just going to strike down the binary trigger amendment. But then he says, quote, make no mistake, during the late hours of May 19, 2024, lawmaking did not occur within the framework of the Constitution. This court respectfully suggests that if there has ever been a bill without a common theme and where all bounds of reason and restraint seem to have been abandoned, this is it.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Yeah, if you want to listen to more of that commentary and the other podcasts hosted by American Experiment, not just the John Justice Show, head on over to AmericanExperiment.org and check that out. A lot of great new pieces up, a few of which I'll be referencing on the show today. And I'm glad you're with us on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. You can follow me on X at John Jon Justice. Remember, you can listen and watch at MN Think Tank on X as well. Friend of the show, Pat, posted, I thought when they first announced Biden's cancer diagnosis in 2025, it had spread to his bones then. I seem to recall hearing something similar, but at the same time, my guess is if we were to go back and look, there was probably nothing official coming from the Biden campaign regarding the fact that it had spread. Maybe it's because I believe it was stage 4 cancer when it was first announced. And so there might have been an extrapolation of it having spread given the severity of the original diagnosis. Either way, according to Hunter Biden, now that is the case. And as I mentioned before, prayers out to the Biden family. All right, before we dive into nonsense in the WNBA, let's go back to the blaster line this morning, 612-584-4565. That is the number to leave us a comment.
John, great to hear you again. Got a question for Lisa Damas. Have her explain to us why she's not a DFL in Rhino clothing. What has she done over the last 5 years that would make me think she's not a Rhino?
Thank you for the comment this morning and the kind words. With all due respect, I'm not asking her that question. And listen, this is, again, no disrespect to you, Russell, for your comment, but that seems like an issue for you personally. I mean, the easiest answer for Lisa Damas to give if I were to ask her that question, and it's the answer that I would expect is for her to say, well, I don't consider myself to be a Republican in name only. So therefore, I just reject the premise of the question. If you want to leave specific comments as to why you believe personally she is a Rhino, that's a different ballgame altogether. Go that route, Russell. But I'm not just going to say, convince Russell why you're not a Rhino. That's not how things are going to, well, at least on my show, that's not how things are going to work. Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham pushed it back after Chicago Sky guard Dejanai, am I saying that correctly? Carrington blamed with my fingers white privilege for her own rejection from Saturday's game, a post that Carrington later deleted. Cunningham dismissed the accusation outright. She pointed to her own ejection last season for a similar foul. I think the league is taking care of that, she said. This has nothing to do with race. Last year, I did the same thing and I got kicked out. And I deserved to be kicked out. There's no reason to even play that hard. Of the foul itself, Cunningham said, clearly, I think it was unnecessary. I've never really spoken to her, and I have no beef with her, but I guess she has some pent-up stuff. So get your stuff off. That's fine. I can take it. Now, Devin, you went and you watched the clip?
Yes, I'm watching it as we speak again.
Yeah, she got clobbered.
Yeah.
Do you think it was intentional, though, or was it just a matter of that's just how they play in the WNBA?
I think there's a level to intention there.
You think so? A little bit? She went further, agreeing with Devin, calling the hit deliberate. She says, yeah, it's intentional. I do think that when people play The Fever, we're nationally televised, there's a lot of eyes on us, and people just want attention, and that's her trying to get attention. Video of the interaction, which showed Carrington, her clothes lining Cunningham as she went in for a layup. Oh, clotheslining, excuse me, my bad. That's a thing, clotheslining. I read that. My inflection was completely off. Showed Carrington clotheslining Cunningham as she went in for a layup, spread quickly across social media. The foul landed Cunningham on her back on the court. It was upgraded to a flagrant 2 after review, with officials citing wind-up impact and follow-through and high potential for injury for a player in a vulnerable position. So these are obviously all gauges in which the WNBA uses when they're going to go and issue penalties. I have something similar, but I won't bore you with the terminology relating to NASCAR. Cunningham, of course, made waves when she said in an ESPN interview last month that she did not believe it was fair for women and girls to compete in athletics against biological males, and has been the target of protests and criticism ever since. Listen, and therein lies the problem. This is all because she simply voiced her opinion. That's all that it is. I mean, thank the good Lord Almighty that Republicans don't act the same way, or else it would just be chaos everywhere. If Republicans just in all different aspects of life, politics, sports, pop culture, just decided to go and attack, and in this case, violently, individuals because they shared a different view and opinion. And hat tip to Sophie Cunningham for continuing to put up with it. Now, that wasn't the only controversy from over the weekend regarding the WNBA. 2 former NBA players have announced plans to enter the 2027 draft for a top professional women's basketball league. So Enes Kanter Freedom and Senate candidate Royce White both had careers in professional men's basketball league. On August 7th, announced their intentions to put their names forward for selection for the upcoming Women's National Basketball Association draft. Both said they believe they are eligible to join based on the WNBA's current policies if they temporarily identify as female. So unless my order of how all of this played out is off, Royce should have simply gone and vocally, in my opinion, vocally supported Enes Kanter Freedom, because I believe he was the first one to step forward to offer up the suggestion that he would place himself in the draft for the WNBA. And then Royce White, seeing what Kanter Freedom did, decided, oh, I'll go and do the same thing. Now it just looks like he's jumping onto his coattails. We don't need 2 NBA players going and making this point. I think Enes Kanter Freedom was carrying the water. There was no need for Royce White to go and get involved in this, but be that as it may, here we are. So take of it what you will. I might be nitpicking, but I just saw it. I was like, dude, just support the other guy. You're running for Senate. I mean, because the other part of this too is the expectation here for Royce White, is he just assuming he's not going to win tomorrow, and so he's going to go ahead and do this? What if the WNBA decides, yeah, you're a woman, come play for us? The 11-seasoned player turned human rights advocate said his announcement was not meant to mock or disrespect the transgender identifying individuals, saying he simply wants the WNBA to apply the stated rules equally. I'm declaring for the 2027 WNBA draft, said White, who was campaigning for Republican Minnesota U.S. Senate seat. I identify as a sometimes identifying transgender woman. Their announcement was met with a response from the labor union League for Players, the WNBPA. They released a statement saying they do stand for embracing justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. The WNBA is now under pressure to clarify its policies on whether athletes born male can join the league launched by the NBA for elite female players. Is that terminology elite? Should we? Well, I guess elite among women. I cannot judge this at all, and I probably shouldn't criticize. I've never watched a WNBA game, although I've considered it. No, I take that back. I did watch a portion of a WNBA game when Caitlin Clark was the hot thing. What a disappointment that's been, because she could be a great advocate and she's not. I have considered watching a WNBA game with Sophie Cunningham. I just haven't gone in and done that yet. So recent addition to the friends of the show and the guests, social media influencer and defender of Minneapolis to bring back its vibrancy. Becca Thompson, who was on the show last week, she posted on social media about this very issue, and specifically the emergency meeting being called by the WNBA to try to identify for them definitively what is and isn't qualifications to be a
By
woman.
the way,
Here's
just a
Becca
quick
Thompson.
Definitional thing. What, in your mind, is the difference between socialism and communism?
Oh, my apologies. That is the wrong clip, and that is absolutely on me. I'm going to have to go and track down the right one. All right, coming up in just a moment on the show, I'm going to find the right clip of Becca Thompson. So my apologies for that, and we'll be talking with Andrew Langer, president of the Institute for Liberty. Far left governor candidate taps OnlyFans model as deputy campaign manager. At least it's making things more interesting when it comes to the Democrat Socialists of America. And is the rise of the DSA essentially a new progressive Tea Party? We'll talk with Andrew Langer about these issues next. If you want to leave a comment and drop us a blast at 612-584-4565, or you can email john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
What's that thing that Keith Ellison said in the December 2021 meeting with fraudsters? Money is freedom. Money is power. Yeah, right? I mean, that's happening in Minnesota, and you don't just see it with public sector unions generally, but especially, I mean, look at the teachers union. It is like cartel levels of control that they hold over the DFL here in Minnesota. So even if there were some DFL legislators who, say, wanted school choice and thought it was a great policy, the teachers union is so against it and so against any meaningful reform that they really can't come out and support it because they're being funded, their campaigns are being run by the union.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Minnesota is the second most generous state in the nation, spending $46,000 on public welfare per person in poverty in 2023. Second most generous.
Just really quick, if those people in poverty had the $46,000, they wouldn't be in poverty.
So I just would like to quickly point out
checks. Quickly point out that the government is once again like the least efficient organization in the world.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank. Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
And remember to head on over to AmericanExperiment.org to check out more of that commentary. We're going to bring in President of the Institute for Liberty, Andrew Langer, in just a moment. First off, though, I have gone and tracked down the clip from Becca Thompson talking about the WNBA.
My sister gave it to me. She was like, "Your hair's in your eyes, right? Let's keep." I'm somewhere between like an 8-year-old girl and an octogenarian.
She's talking about her haircut.
Nursing home. Let's do this. Okay, so the WNBA, because W stands for whatever, is now holding an emergency summit to determine what a woman is. And I would just like to explain a little something if you didn't already know. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get heat for this, but I actually am done caring, so I'm just going to say it, okay? We are not the smartest civilization to ever walk the earth. Like far, 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 far from it. our arrogance about us being the most enlightened is a real problem, but we're definitely not. Now, you can understand what ancient civilizations thought about the matter from our words. So, without getting into all the words of all the times, which I could, let's just stick with English. Obviously, we have man, which comes from Adam and Om and all these other things. Man. But then womb man is in kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Remember that? What's up, biology class? Man meant human beings. Hue meaning color spectrum. Human beings. Hue, colors. Man, beings. But womb man came from womb. Womb man. The womb man. Because one group has the womb. It's defined that way. So if you don't have a womb, let's just use that, WNBA, whatever, National Basketball Association. See you out there.
Becca Thompson on her on her X feed. Andrew Langer, president of the Institute for Liberty. Just as a complete aside, I don't know if your mind went to where my mind went, but I started thinking about the beat poetry.
Woman,
man.
She stole my heart. She stole my cat. Yes, that's exactly where I went with it. So I married an axe murderer. Whoa, man. This is why John and I have been friends for 15 years.
Yeah, man. Too funny. That movie's impossible, by the way. That movie is impossible to find on streaming.
Yeah. Well, that and PCU, right? The two of them.
I have not been able to find either of those on streaming. Good morning, buddy.
So I was thinking of you because I took a subway ride up to the Bronx on Friday night and was thinking about the Warriors. Yeah, it was. I was in New York over the weekend. We went to the Yankee game on Friday. You know, if those of you don't know, my dad passed away in May. I don't know if we ever really talked about him in the air, maybe a little bit. And 3 months ago, this past Saturday, and so we had a bit of a family gathering. We haven't done a memorial service yet, but my trip to Yankee Stadium on Friday certainly helped to suffice for some of that, which was good. But also sorry, go ahead, John.
Oh, I was just going to ask if you were declaring your putting your name into the ring for the WNBA for the draft, for the 2027 draft for the WNBA.
I would be one of those guys on the adult team or high school team who would absolutely 100% lose to anybody on the WNBA. No, plus I don't have the legs for it. If I were Tim Curry, from Rocky Horror, maybe. No, this is so funny. We really are through the looking glass in so many ways on these things. I mean, this is what happens. And there was she a Minneapolis TV host who got all upset about what Clay Travis had said? It was Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, it was. Jana Shortall. If by the way, quick production meeting. If you have the chance to turn your mic down on your end just a skosh, you're clipping a little bit over here on our end. Not a huge deal, but I can just tell as we're talking. If you can't, then don't worry about it. So,
maybe a little hard for me to figure out. I got to put my Mr. Magoo glasses on.
All right, there you go. Well, maybe hold back on your tone. So again, a little on our production meeting. No, Jana Shortall. That was a really interesting clip that we played last week from her because her argument only made sense from the premise of what she believes, and that is that men can identify as women. So she, makes the comment of, well, this is just because they don't like women athletes. And it's like, no, the whole baseline premise of your argument is completely false because you're associating a man saying that they're a woman, and that just simply isn't the case. And unfortunately, as we'll talk about, there's too many individuals that just buy into all of that, which makes any sort of debate, nigh impossible to have.
Well, listen, it's funny. I had a conversation with a rather progressive member of my family over the weekend. And this person admitted to me, this is someone who was, run the gamut of sort of the terms that are out there. But she expressed frustration to me about the concept of him, her lesbians, which is not something I'd ever really considered before. But essentially, it's trans men who no, I'm sorry, it is women. See, I can't even get this. Women who identify using him, her pronouns, but are nevertheless declaring themselves to be lesbians. And
Okay.
it was like, okay, I just, and this person's like, this is too much even for me, which is, I guess, the point out there. When you go on ad nauseum, when words mean everything, then words mean nothing.
Let's talk about letters, specifically DSA, and let's start here. Senator John Fetterman criticized Democrat Senate nominee Abdul El Sayed for his alliance with far-left streamer Hassan Piker in opposition to military aid for Israel, warning that it could jeopardize the Michigan Senate seat. He also challenged El Sayed to continue campaigning with Piker, highlighting the potential risks of associating with controversial figures. Now, all of these things sort of fall under the category of the Democrat Socialists of America, and I do want to talk a little bit more about El Sayed, especially I have some audio to share regarding his negative commentary around Mackinac Island. But let me start here, though. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez making the rounds as of late, talking about the potential that she could be a 2028 presidential nominee for the Democrats. She was asked about this over the weekend regarding her affiliation with the DSA, as we talk with Andrew Langer here on the John Justice Show, presented by American
By the way,
Experiment.
just a quick definitional thing. What, in your mind, is the difference between socialism and communism?
I think, to me, the fundamental differences, there's many.
Yeah.
One prevailing one is democracy. And I believe that democratic socialists are fundamentally pro-democracy. And we believe in the ballot box. We believe in respecting the outcomes of elections and governing democratically, and ensuring that the ideas and policies that are implemented are won through popular vote and popular opinion. And so I think that's why so much of what we focus on is also making sure that we are providing for the majority of Americans, guaranteeing health care, raising wages, strengthening the right to a union. And I think that that's at its core what we're about.
Are you still a member of Democratic Socialists of America?
Of the New York City chapter.
The New York City chapter, not the national.
She said that
she's
so
not
very proudly.
To be really clear, John, she's not a national socialist. She's just a New York socialist.
Just a New York socialist. Is there a difference? So I have my thoughts on this, but Andrew Langer, your thoughts. And you know, ahead of our conversation, we usually chit-chat back and forth about what we wanted to talk about. And you kind of likened the rise of the DSA to the Tea Party movement, if I'm correct,
No.
right?
No. Let me be really clear.
Oh,
Other folks
okay,
are
good.
trying to liken it to the Tea Party movement.
Okay.
The same way that they tried to say that with Occupy Wall Street. Here's what I love about this new show, John. Is that, having this put on and being sponsored and the platform of the Center for the American Experiment, means that we can have an in-depth conversation about stuff. And let's, there are two ways to go with this. And number one is to get into classical Marxist theory, right? Which is, Marx laying out in Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto the difference between communism and socialism, and that socialism was the transitional phase between capitalism and pure communism, that communism was the goal. So we could talk about that. There are two halves of the same whole there. So the idea that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or anybody else is going to try to distinguish between the two is a form of ignorance and insanity, and again, trying to say that words no longer have meaning, but of course they do. The other part of this is really fascinating to sort of get in depth on it. And just stick with me for a second, John.
Sure.
Which is the so-called obsession by democratic socialists with democracy. Now, I know your listeners, because you have some of the best listeners in radio, sat there and said, well, the socialists, whether it was the USSR or, the various socialist republics in Eastern Europe, they all declared themselves as sort of democratic socialists. Is that on your end or my end?
That's on our end, and I have, the fire alarm has just gone off.
All right,
here at
listen,
the Center of the
John. If you
American
have to
Experiment
run,
Studios.
I will take over. I can take over the show from here if you need me
No,
to.
see, that's the unfortunate thing is that the previous employer, the alarms always took place outside
Yeah.
of the studio, not in the studio. So, Devin, why don't you wander out? Leave it up for now. Why don't you wander out and see if you can't find out what's going on?
All right.
And we'll continue to work through a bit of the conversation here.
Yes.
Finish
So-
your
so-
thought.
So the point is that you had these republics that sort of declared themselves as democratic socialists, and of course they were not. So there's that aspect of it. But most importantly, the obsession on the part of democratic socialists with so-called democracy, right? This is the further extension of the Democrats not being willing to recognize that in our system we balance rights and we balance the mob rule. Because what AOC, at the core, what AOC and her democratic socialist brethren are talking about is the ultimate mobocracy, right? And so there we go. And so what happens is that when you have the pure democracy that AOC is talking about, what that does do is it shortchanges. So they can go after and shortchange the free speech rights of people that they don't like. They can seize the property of people that they don't like. They can make all kinds of rules to restrict the movement and actions of people they don't like in the name of democratic rule. If the majority says that it's so, that's the way it's going to be. We don't live in a democracy. We certainly don't live in a socialist democracy. We live in a capitalist democratic republic, and all of those things play together. And there you go. Now,
Devin's gone and he's put the fire out.
Good.
So let me take that. Let me add another element because I want to get your thoughts on this because it kind of plays into my thoughts of what the Democrats have been trying to do. It's like they want the best of both worlds. This version of the Democrat Socialists of America within the Democrat Party, so many of them, and AOC did it in the clip. They want all the good things when it comes to democracy and fair elections. They want to take advantage of capitalism where it benefits them, but at the same time, they're touting this Democrat socialism in this new sort of twisted Frankenstein version of progressivism, and the two cannot coexist together. They are antithetical to one another, and yet they're trying to put forward this, hey, we're going to combine the best of both worlds, everything that you love that makes America prosperous, but also the Democrat socialist and the socialist angle of it. And it just simply, it can't exist. It's a Frankenstein monster that's going to fall over and die.
You know, at least you have to respect the honesty of the brutality of the Chinese communist state-run capitalism model, right? At the end of the day, the Chinese are unapologetic in terms of the fact that they use the proletariat as grist for the mill. And everybody else sort of benefits. I use air quotes there, but yeah, I mean that's just it. It is trying to create this warm and fuzzy socialism without understanding, why we do what we do, why things matter. You got to. What was the line? Oh, good Lord! You got to understand. Oh no, it's Captain Kirk, right? A saying to Kirstie Alley in Star Trek 2, you have to understand why things work the way that they do on a starship. And listen, I will say that clip you played at the beginning where we're talking about how we don't understand where we're coming from, woman, and all that jazz. And the arrogance of our society. The arrogance of our society in the late 19th, early 20th century was to get rid of the prime example of this, John, is getting rid of the way that the Senate was being elected out of state legislatures, the United States Senate. In a fit of democratic impulses, right? We passed the 17th Amendment, which said that no longer were we going to elect senators out of state legislatures, but we were going to have direct election of senators. And isn't this going to be so much better? Without understanding why it was that the founders wanted to do this. And messing up what was a pretty good system in terms of the idea that you had a body where they were more responsive to local concerns because they were elected out of bodies of legislators that were closest to the people. So this is the same the same mistaken impulse without understanding why it is that we have this system of cooperative federalism that we do.
What do you think is it too soon to make any predictions on how some of these Democrat socialist candidates are going to fare against against Republicans? I saw somebody posted online last week after some of these wins, especially El Said, and they were asking the question, and I'm curious your thoughts on whether or not does this give Republicans an advantage, or does it increase Democrat turnout because they are passionate over these radical individuals that they have chosen to go and be their nominees?
All Republicans have to do is not be crazy, right? I mean, listen, this is essentially it, and it really doesn't matter how you define crazy. Don't say stupid stuff. Be reasonable, and maybe because again, being home and being with a bunch of, and I'll say this, a bunch of my New York leftist, and I was raised culturally Jewish, not particularly religious, but same way as a lot of my relatives were, who are genuinely scared of the anti-Semitic impulses of the far left DSA. And so all our Republicans have to do is be reasonable on a bunch of things and make it really clear that they're not anti-Semitic. And maybe, just maybe, we can stem what otherwise would probably be a blue tide this year. Listen, I think the blue tide is blunted. I think it's going to be a blue trickle, like it was a red trickle in 2022. But nevertheless, it's 2026. Anything can happen.
Talking with Andrew Langer, president of the Institute for Liberty. Let's go back to the blaster line this morning. Got a couple of comments that have rolled in on topic here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
Hey, John. I'm here. I think when Democrat Social America says that they believe in democracy, they're lying to their teeth. They don't actually believe that. In fact, if they do let you vote, it'll be like, what flavor is the Kool-Aid this week? You can have cherry or grape. That's what you get to vote on. Everything else will dictate to you. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thanks as always, Hans. Appreciate your comment. Andrew, do you have anything to add to what Hans had to say there?
I get what he's saying, and insofar as this is why Democrats really do oppose. I mean, they hate Trump and they don't want Trump to have executive branch power. But anytime we try to move to lessen that power in the centralized government, the Democrats oppose that, right? The Supreme Court is a prime example. The Supreme Court overturns the Chevron doctrine, which allowed an enormous power to be concentrated in the executive branches. They could have discretion to make interpretations of laws. The Supreme Court overturns this a couple of years ago, and what does socialist Elizabeth Warren want to do? Well, she wants to pass a law to give that power back to the executive branch. So the blaster is right insofar as, they don't want to get rid of that power, but they do want democracy insofar as they believe in mob rule, whereas we as Republicans or we as conservatives believe that mob rule is always balanced out by the Constitution.
Let's go back to the blaster line. 612-584-4565 is the number if you want to leave us a comment throughout the show.
So I just heard AOC comment that the Democrat socialists are behind whatever the popular vote won. Whatever popular vote won gets to enact their policies, but they're pushing back against all the policies just won in their standards by our president. So she's lying through her teeth. We know they're always lying, but she just said it out loud. They don't care.
Andrew Langer, it's so difficult whenever you hear pretty much any Democrat, because they'll say whatever. I mean, really, to kind of bring it down to a base level, they will say whatever they need to say in order to grow their power, retain their power, bring in more votes. So it kind of dovetails off of what we were talking about. They're all over the map, and they're willing to say whatever they need to say.
they believe in democracy insofar as, whatever they can do to get as many people on their side voting for them. And what I mean by this is, this is why they want the national popular vote in presidential elections as opposed to the electoral college. This
Yep.
is why they want to make it so that illegals can vote, or non-citizens can vote, in some places. They want to lower the voting age to 16, because what they want to do is they want to artificially increase their popular vote numbers, so that they can then have this bizarro mandate, right? The thing they always point to is the popular vote. This is why I have an inherent distrust of any Republican who believes in changing our system from the electoral college to the national popular vote.
Let's wrap up on a couple of different items. Let's move over to Congress. Senate, of course, has called it a day temporarily and has gotten very little accomplished. To say that it's frustrating would be an understatement, Andrew Langer.
Yeah, listen, I get it. And I get that we need the SAVE Act again to get at this issue of who actually can vote in our elections. The Democrats want everybody and their brother to do it. There was a cryptocurrency regulation bill, which I get a little sketchy about. But on the other hand, we want Congress to be the ones to determine how we're going to regulate cryptocurrency. We don't want it left to the agencies to sort of decide for themselves. On the other hand, listen, I'm always tempered. My disappointment is always tempered by the fact that, yes, the Senate is the place where, when we have good bills, bills that we like coming out of the House, the place where good bills go to die. On the other hand, it is also the place where, when Democrats have bills that they like in the House that come out, it's the place where good bills go to die. So as I've said in the past, though, listen, guys, if you wanna fix this, let's repeal the 17th Amendment and have senators elected out of state legislatures. That would make them a little bit more responsive.
And speaking of the Senate, we're actually going to be talking with lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien coming up right around 7:15, ahead of gubernatorial candidate Lisa Damuth joining us on the couch here in the American Experiment studio. And he's going to lay out how Lamy Klobuchar, Democrat gubernatorial candidate, she's trying to take credit for the extension of the new hemp restrictions that would really harm businesses here in Minnesota, but she had nothing to do with any of this, apart from just being a vote in the Senate. And she's out there trying to tout that it's because of her that there may be an extension on pausing this particular regulation.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is what they do. They take credit for things.
Yeah,
for things
they'll say whatever they need to say.
that they haven't done. Yes, that's what they do.
Last item of note, showing our age. I wasn't aware of this, but former congressman, but also known as Cooter from Dukes of Hazzard, passed away. You shared this news with me as we started this morning.
There was that moment of time where we were getting folks out of 70s TV elected to office. Ben Jones, Cooter from Dukes of Hazzard, and Gopher Fred Grandy from the Love Boat. I believe they
Fred
served
Thompson
at the same time in Congress.
Fred Thompson, right?
No, Fred Grandy. Fred Thompson.
No, I was saying, Fred Thompson. You can also.
Well, yes, that's very true. Movie actor, though not TV.
That's true.
Yeah, Fred Thompson's wife Jerry, a long-standing conservative activist as well. So, but at least Fred Thompson had the experience before he became an actor of working up on the Hill. I don't know if you know this, but he was one of the counsels to the Watergate Committee. So he'd spent some time up there doing that. So
I was a huge Fred Thompson fan, not just Hunt for Red October, but also his time in office. It was such a loss when he was gone too soon.
Stalwart of the Senate and brilliant, and that was good stuff. But yeah, so safe home, Ben Jones. That's sad news.
Andrew Langer, president of the Institute for Liberty. What have you been involved in, and where would you like the listener to head on over to when they're done listening to this fantastic program?
Obviously, tout this next week, but we recorded the 200th episode of the Lunch Hour podcast, my weekly public policy podcast. That'll be up next Monday. This week, however, and John, you're going to appreciate this, I think, very much, because it gets into your creative writing work. This week's episode, Rainer Zeidelman, who's written a series of books about privatization and space exploration. I sit down with him and talk about space policy. So check that out. At the Lunch Hour Pod is that Twitter account. At Andrew_Langer is how you find me. Go and check it out.
Woman, whoa, man.
Whoa, man. Whoa, man. Betty,
Andrew,
Judy, yes.
Andrew Langer, as always, thanks, buddy. It was great talking with you.
Later, man. Talk to you later.
All right, let's go back to the blaster line. Friend of the show, Brandon, has some thoughts at 612-584-4565.
Hey, John, Brandon Cottage. To answer that Talkbacker's question about Lisa, well, I'm pretty sure she showed up every single day for, a month, trying to push the DFL to get in and do their job and pass legislation for the state, as to where nobody from the left did. And she kept Republicans coming back to the House every single day throughout that entire month and made comments. She works across party lines. I mean, I think the guy just sounds like he has a personal issue with her for his own reasons rather than actually looking at what she's really done. Have a great day and a great show.
Brandon, of course, was referencing a previous talkback that was basically asking me to ask Lisa Demuth why she's not a rhino, which I'm just going to reject a question like that outright. All of this goes to point to two things, though. One, why we need to get rid of the endorsement process here in Minnesota. And two, on top of that, why primaries like tomorrow are so crucial. And an official welcome in to you new arrivals this morning as we start hour 2 here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. My name is, of course, John Justice. I'm glad you're with us today. If you miss any portion of the broadcast, you can check out the podcast. That'll be available up where you can listen right now to the show on the MixLR app. It's free to download if you haven't done so already. Also at AmericanExperiment.org, and you can watch the show live at MN Think Tank and on Facebook and YouTube at Center of the American Experiment. We have producer Devin pushing the buttons and keeping the show on track this morning. Lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien joining us in about 15 minutes from now. And then we got a packed show of guests ahead of tomorrow's primary. As I mentioned, gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth will be sitting on the couch here in the American Experiment studios at 7:30. Michelle Tafoya will go and occupy that seat starting at 8 o'clock, and then at 8:30, Hennepin County Attorney candidate Diane Krentz will be joining us here as well. So a busy day this morning here on the John Justice Show, and I'm certainly glad that you're with us. John.justice at AmericanExperiment.org, and leave us a comment. We call them blasts here on the show, 612-584-4565. All right, a couple of holdovers from last hour, dovetailing off of my conversation with Andrew Langer, president of the Institute for Liberty, talking about the Democrat Socialists of America. Michigan Democrat Senate candidate Abdul El-Sayed facing backlash after he trashed a beloved Michigan vacation spot in a resurfaced videos, and then he doubled down when confronted on it. He said, I don't think the most American place in Michigan is a place that bans cars, he said. Mackinac Island banned motor vehicles back in the 1890s. It's part of the charm of Mackinac Island, leaving the island to horse-drawn carriages, bicycles, and foot traffic. It wasn't for some green initiative. No, it's essentially one of the reasons and draws to why people go there. It's a rule that generations of Michigan families, working off of an article from Daily Wire, have treated as part of the island's charm. El-Sayed, though, sees it differently because he sees American exceptionalism, America, patriotism differently. The dude is twisted and should never have been running for office, certainly not nominated. He says, I hate Mackinac so much in a resurfaced documentary from his failed 2018 gubernatorial campaign. Every time I've ever come here, I've hated it. Why am I here? The island has also hosted the governor's official summer residence since 1945, a fact that El-Sayed jokes about in a clip, noting that a win would have made Mackinac his summer home. He'll be facing off against Republican nominee Mike Rogers, a former U.S. representative who has already taken 2 digs at El-Sayed since then. Asked on CNN Tuesday night whether he was comfortable with El-Sayed's connection with Hassan Piker, that radical leftist, given remarks about 9/11 and other comments that he's made. And Senator Bernie Sanders admitted that he was not. He said, I think it's a dumb statement, but he quickly pivoted to defend the streamer. Now, be that as it may, I do want to get into some commentary of Bernie Sanders relating to the Wisconsin gubernatorial candidate that's been making headlines. Before I do that, though, Kid Rock, who has some familiarity with Mackinac Island, was talking, I believe, with Fox News over his thoughts about El Sayed's comments. Here's what Kid Rock had to say.
Mackinac is one of the most beautiful places in America. And don't take my word for it. Ask the millions of people who have visited. I just recently had some friends up here at my lake home in Charlevoix, Michigan, from South Alabama, from Birmingham, Alabama, but have a lake house in Alabama. Knew nothing about northern Michigan. So one of the first things I do is take them over to Mackinac Island. There's no cars there. You get a buggy pulled by horses. You tour the island and the old Fort Mackinac there. You see the beautiful landscape and homes overlooking Lake Michigan and the Mackinac Bridge. And then my favorite thing to do, one of my favorite things on earth, is to end up at the Grand Hotel, which is one of the largest front porches in the world, if not the largest in America, lined with American flags. And you're sitting there having a whiskey drink before you go to dinner. And it's God's country. Every little town up here in North Michigan is like a Norman Rockwell painting come to life.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. You know, unfortunately, as I mentioned, too many individuals are, just because they want to thumb their nose at conservatives, are throwing their support behind these dangerous candidates. And Democrats are attempting to obviously go and capitalize on this. And the excuse that they've been using is this: well, we're a big tent party. We invite all of these individuals into our party, so we welcome these Democrat socialists. This is bogus. You know who the big tent party is right now? And I wish that Republicans would go and capitalize on this. It's Republicans. It's Republicans that are willing to take anybody, regardless of their political affiliation, under the banner of conservatism right now. I have some clips that I'll share with you that play into this very point. We've seen over and over again prominent political figures, social media influencers, local politicos, for lack of a better way to describe them, who have been disenfranchised with the Democrat Party and have been looking over to Republicans as sort of the last bastion of sanity. You know, Democrat socialists, it's in the name. They still tout themselves as Democrats, even though they are this Frankenstein monster of ideologies attempting to take advantage of what America has to offer and what we all love about it, but combining it with this far leftist Marxist ideology that simply cannot coexist together. It's not a big party. No, it's the Democrats basically just leaning into communism, going further left than what they already believe. No, it's the Republican Party that's the Big Tent party. You look at, as we played, social media influencer and an individual fighting to bring about a resurgence in Minneapolis, Becca Thompson. She was a former Democrat. Callie Proctor, friend of the show, you know, ended up sort of ditching her more moderate Democrat leanings, moving towards conservatism because of how much they see the Democrat Party moving to the left, to communism, and the fact that they tout how much they hate America. So yeah, the Big Tent party, it's Republicans. Let me play this for you. I want to talk briefly about the speaking of far leftists, Democrat Francesca Hong's campaign for governor. Right, talk about the most radical of radicals. But to those individuals that are so close to coming over to the Republican Party for good, Bill Maher, to the point where the Democrats have gone so far left, Bill Maher now sounds like a conservative talk show host. Now, granted, I have not paid attention or watched like a Bill Maher show in its entirety. I've seen a bunch of clips, so maybe this is in line with commentary that he typically does. But when I saw and heard this clip, I had to chuckle out loud talking about Francesca Hong because, again, he sounds like a conservative talk show host.
Democrats have found a candidate who hates Thanksgiving and wants to get rid of it. Yes, running for governor in Wisconsin, Francesca Hong. Have you heard about this? Yeah, Thanksgiving, she says, should be canceled. I say good. Finally, a politician willing to stand up to big stuffing. Of course, yesterday she went on CNN and renounced it. I don't believe you. I don't believe you people who renounce things. We know what you said. You mean it. Live by it. You fucking squirrely out of it. No, you meant it. You know why I know she meant it? Because she hates all holidays. She talked about feeling attacked on Christmas when someone put on her computer a Christmas scene. Doesn't like fireworks, 4th of July. Halloween, all the far lefties hate Halloween. Costumes that are inappropriate, oh please. This woman doesn't like Valentine's Day, another way of capitalism taking over our love life. She said, Valentine's Day, the holiday that brings out the worst of humanity. That's the holiday that's the holiday that brings out the worst of humanity? Have you ever been to a Black Friday sale?
By the way, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I've done commentary regarding Democrats hating Halloween going back like a decade. I've been saying that for the longest time because all the Halloween is basically you appropriating somebody else. So, of course, the Democrats would go and hate it. But when Bernie Sanders is asked about the radical leanings of Francesca Hong, here is what he had to say over the weekend.
Democratic socialist Francesca Hong in Wisconsin is expected to win her Democratic primary. There's been some attention to some of her social media posts recently, but she has this platform of free childcare, state-run grocery stores, more health care subsidies. She wants to raise income taxes on millionaires. Some of this does seem to align with your platform. So I'm wondering, why don't you support her? Is some of what she supports too extreme for you?
No, raising taxes on the rich, making sure that everybody in Wisconsin or America has health care as a right, sounds quite reasonable to me.
Yeah, of course it does for Bernie Sanders. The multimillionaire who uses socialism essentially to reap millions of dollars and it has no impact or bearing on him whatsoever if the country were to go full socialism for an individual like Bernie Sanders. So comments like that do not shock me in the least bit. Now, there is a new controversy relating to Francesca Hong's campaign for governor of Wisconsin. I want to share it with you in just a moment. But first, a friend of the show, Congressman Tom Tiffany, also gubernatorial candidate, talking about this very issue of how the potential gubernatorial opponent in the Wisconsin governor's race is this extreme radical. Here's a little from Congressman Tom Tiffany.
You look at the debates 2 weeks ago, none of the Democrat candidates would take on Ms. Hong and the crazy stuff that she says, like abolish prisons, abolish police. None of them would take it on. So you know that ultimately the leadership of the Democrat Party in Wisconsin, they are all in for this big government socialism. And we have to be the firewall here in Wisconsin that stops it right here in the heartland from spreading across America. And that's what we're doing every day, is delivering that message. And it is resonating across Wisconsin. Wisconsinites are deeply concerned about what they're hearing.
Yeah, they are. And I wish that I had a better assessment for you of how these elections are going to play out. I would love to believe that in November, these far leftist, communist, self-proclaimed Democrat socialists like Francesca Hong, I would like to believe that this will be a bridge too far for most Democrat voters. But I simply don't know. It all depends on just how effective the Democrats' propaganda has been in convincing their broken and base set of voters to go and support these individuals simply because they run fully counter to Republicans. I mean, that's another reason why all of this has happened, why there's been this rise of communists on the left. It's because the Democrats created a pathway for them to come in and essentially fully take over the party. They were always a part of the party, but now they've grown in numbers because it has been a political winner for them. You can't get you can't put forward a better contrast to Republican and conservative values and ideologies than communism. So it makes sense that those on the left would be embracing this now as a means to thumb their nose, throw their middle finger up at conservatism. In the meantime, Renee Faust, previously went by the name of Renee Olstead, serving as the deputy campaign manager for Francesca Hong's campaign for governor of Wisconsin, according to the Heartland Post. Faust first became known as a child television actress. Okay. She played Lauren Miller on the CBS sitcom Still Standing. Never watched it. 2002 and 2006. She later appeared on The Secret Life of an American Teenager. Never heard of that either. I never watched it, at least. Recorded jazz albums produced by David Foster. Okay. So you might be thinking, John, why are you bringing this up? I'm bringing it up because in around 2020, apparently she wasn't making any more money through the legitimate means of entertainment. And she moved into adult modeling, launched an OnlyFans account. In January of 23, she was named Penthouse Pet of the Month, which answers the question for me of whether or not they still had Penthouse pets. I guess they do. Yeah. And in March of 2025, the magazine crowned her as the 2024 Pet of the Year. By the way, how come that hasn't been canceled? Calling a woman a pet. I get it because it's Penthouse Pet of the Month. It's play on words, but still. Seems very counter to what Democrats and liberals believe. She's publicly called herself a sex worker and founded the Coalition for American Sex Workers, known as CASW Local 304. The group lobbies for decriminalizing prostitution and related policy changes. You know, in the past, this would have been something that would have been devastating to a candidate, would have gone and destroyed any chances that they had of actually winning an election, let alone a primary. And yet in today's world and today's Democrat party, unfortunately, this is touted as something to be applauded. Right. It's women's power, right? Yeah, okay. Coming up, Minnesota hemp industry gets a lifeline as U.S. Senate votes 61-32 to delay the federal ban prior to them going on recess. Now, Amy Klobuchar has been out attempting to take credit for all of this, and we're going to talk with lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien in just a moment about how essentially Amy Klobuchar should not be trying to take any credit for this delay in the federal ban that would have been devastating to the businesses selling these products here in Minnesota. So we'll talk with our lawyer extraordinaire here in just a moment on the show. Ahead of tomorrow's primary, here's some commentary from Center of the American Experiment and Bill Walsh talking about polling numbers in the past. You can check out this commentary at americanexperiment.org, and we'll talk with lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien in just a moment here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
Is the Declaration of Independence worth celebrating? 66% of Minnesotans said yes. Woo! The Declaration of Independence is worth celebrating. 4% said boycott. That's just 4% crank, in this poll. We can ignore that.
Gosh, this is shocking
numbers.
to me. It really is. When I picture all of the protesters that I see every weekend with their upside down American flags, the No Kings, and the signs cycle every few months because someone's making them for them and giving them their messages. Those people must be included somewhere in here, right? I don't know. That's incredible.
Is America generally a force for good in the world? And again, remember, this came out right before we bombed Iran. These numbers might be different today, but 54% thought America was a force for good in the world, 41% not a force for good, 5% unsure. So not a horrible result there. I think
41% say not a force for good. How do you think that?
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Now, one of Keith Ellison's campaign donors has pleaded guilty to fraud. Now, it's shocking, I know. For what it's worth, became the last of a 7-member family group to plead guilty in the sprawling Feeding Our Future fraud scandal last week. Ikram Yusuf Mohammed, who once worked as a Feeding Our Future employee, but more excitingly was present at the infamous December 2021 meeting where Keith Ellison, our own Attorney General, met with some fraud-connected individuals. She was in that meeting. So a few days after that meeting took place back in December 2021, her brother, Gandhi, who just pled guilty last week, donated the maximum allowed amount to Keith Ellison's campaign. That was $2,500. But this is so interesting because Gandhi was not only being investigated for food fraud, and we've seen this with several fraudsters. Gandhi Mohammed received at least $36 million in Medicaid reimbursements, as well as the stuff that he was making off the free food fraud case. But he hasn't been charged with fraud in those programs yet. So were those ill-gotten gains?
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
And again, if you want more of that commentary, also check out the other podcasts produced by Center of the American Experiment. Head on over to AmericanExperiment.org, AmericanExperiment.org. Joining us now, his first appearance on the new iteration of the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment, lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien, who was very fired up about Amy Klobuchar yesterday to the point where he called me up because he had things to say. Good morning, Jeff O'Brien. How are we doing this morning, sir?
Good morning. I'm good, John. Yeah, I should say was a lawyer extraordinaire and a former American Experiment intern. I was an intern there 30 years ago.
Wow.
If I wasn't the first, I was one of the first, but it's a great organization. It's a lot of fun.
Well, you know what? That bodes well for a long and fruitful future here for the John Justice Show at American Experiment, based off of the length of time that you've been involved with the organization. Before we dive into Senator Amy Klobuchar, de facto gubernatorial candidate after tomorrow, talk a little bit about your background within this industry, and let the audience, for those that may be newer to the show, get a little bit more acquainted with lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien.
Sure. Well, I'm a transactional attorney to corporate and real estate, but for the last, 16, 17 years, I think I started out working with craft breweries here in Minnesota, who, of course, have become very big into manufacturing these hemp beverages or THC beverages, whatever you want to call them. Do some cannabis stuff too. So I get to do all these heavily regulated industries, or some people call them vice industries. So I've been, for the last, since 2022, in Minnesota, created their regulatory system for these, what they now call low potency hemp products here. I've been very involved with this and have been tracking what's been going on at the federal level since last November, when this delayed ban went into effect. Our firm is members of a group called the Hemp Beverage Alliance, and I'm on calls every other week trying to find out what the status of the efforts were to either delay the ban or put regulations in place similar to what Minnesota has. And we've talked about this on the old show, John, that we don't see this in Minnesota, don't understand why this is happening. But there are states that had no regulations whatsoever, and they were literally selling, cannabis strength products in gas stations.
Yeah.
And that's what led to this. And so there's been a lot of people touting Minnesota. Minnesota doesn't do a whole lot right when it comes to with its laws, but this is one example. The regulation of these hemp beverages is one example of where Minnesota got it right. And having now we have a system where you can't make them or sell them if you don't have a license. Some cities have their own license for it. So and there's oversight from the state, so we don't have those issues like other states have had, and that's part of why there's some proposed legislation now that would start to have the federal system look a lot more like what Minnesota has.
Let me ask you, before we dive into this particular hemp, this delay in this federal ban, and Senator Amy Klobuchar, would you mind sharing your thoughts on the recent law that went into place on August 1st regarding the Kratom products that were being sold at the convenience stores? I know that those were more heavily regulated than they were before. There were concerns over health consequences. A woman suffered a cardiac arrest taking these products. Any thoughts on this new law regulating Kratom?
Well, I haven't done a lot with Kratom, John, but I can tell you that it's my understanding of it is moving again towards this system we have towards we do regulating these lower strength hemp products. Having some sort of monitoring from the state. One of the things with the hemp products and the licensure requirement was to thin out the availability of some of these products, so it's not at every in every convenience store and every gas station that you right now you have a lot of liquor stores that applied for licenses. You're going to have dispensaries that have applied for them. The idea being, they want to control, obviously, getting it in the hands of minors. Anybody under the age of 21, isn't allowed to have these products, and just making sure that we try to minimize having these stories of somebody taking the wrong thing, or a child getting into it and having an adverse consequence. So I'm all in favor of continuing this path that Minnesota has adopted in regulating these products, because any bad thing that happens, the others, the opponents of all of this seize on that as, well, we can't have this.
The Senate passed a bipartisan bill. I'm looking at the Fox 9 version of the story. I know this is going to rankle you. It's true, but I just want to read you what they wrote. The Senate passed a bipartisan bill with a provision from Senator Amy Klobuchar to delay the federal hemp ban until December 11th, 2026. Did Amy Klobuchar have anything to do with that provision? Was that written by her, Jeff O'Brien?
John, I don't know if she wrote some sort of provision. Here's what happened in this. So this is, there was a delay. Last fall, we should back up to last November, Mitch McConnell got a provision into the bill to reopen the government after the shutdown that closed what they called the hemp loophole out of the 2018 Farm Bill, essentially put a ban on these products, and they delayed the effective date of it to November of this year.
Right.
And so all of the effort from then until now has been either getting a delay of the ban and continuing to work at the federal level to come up with some sort of regulatory structure so the ban would never go into effect. And there's been a lot of different competing proposals. There's one in the House right now, that's Andy Barr from Georgia. And if there's any Democrat in Minnesota that's been doing anything on this, it's been Angie Craig. She's the co-author of the Barr bill in the House. But where this came from is about a week and a half ago, we got word that the White House was insisting that this hemp ban delay be included in the continuing resolution. It was Susie Wiles that put the edict out there, and J.D. Vance was up on Capitol Hill on Thursday meeting with Republican senators who were squeamish about it, right? And so I've heard, in these calls we do on every other Tuesday, I think Amy's name came up once and it was dismissed like, well, she's in the minority, it's not going anywhere. So she may have introduced a similar bill that mirrored the language that was included in the CR. Tim Sheehy, the Republican senator from Montana, has done a lot of the heavy lifting on this in the Senate. I've never heard her name attached to this until she put the videos and the posts out on the socials over the weekend, touting it was her provision. Maybe at one time there was some language, I don't know, but I've never heard her name brought up in terms of one who is working in a bipartisan way or working with the White House to get this delay in. So, I mean, kudos to her, I guess, for voting for what was eventually, passed, because she's done that before, John. She, for years, and I say this as a conservative Republican, I supported her for a number of years because in the boom days of the craft beverage industry, I know. Well, here's the thing. She for years, she was co-author and a big advocate for a tax relief bill for craft beverage companies. And she was even back, our late friend Drew, when he had the beer podcast, she was on it talking about it. I mean, we all were,
Right.
Look at our senior senators doing something for a big industry that provides a lot of jobs and tax revenue in Minnesota. That tax bill ended up getting folded into the first tax bill during the first Trump administration in December of 2017. Guess who voted against it? Amy Klobuchar. So all the years of her pushing it, when it came to, I don't like it's not my bill, it's not my party pushing this, not my president, I'm going to vote against it. So she's pulled this before, where she, she'll say that she's for something, and then when it comes down to actually voting for it, she goes the other way. So I just thought it was kind of galling that she was out there taking such a big.
It is,
and I hadn't heard from, barely heard from her on this going into this weekend in these votes. So I mean, it's very disingenuous on her part, in my opinion, that she's acting like she wrote this and took the laboring, or she like I said, she may have had another one of these companion bills, but this wasn't her effort. This was the White House telling the Republican senators, you're doing this.
Oh, and she's trying to, you get further into this Fox 9 piece, and she's trying to take a victory lap. The article goes on to say the Senate rejected an attempt to remove the delay provision, showing strong bipartisan support. Klobuchar worked late into the night to secure support from both sides of the aisle. And she gives this lengthy statement about all of the greatness that she's done for these businesses here in Minnesota. Of course, and again, there's a reason why, as you mentioned, our dear friend Drew called her the senator of small things. Right? She's done so very little in her, in her past, that she has to try to take credit for anything she can take credit for, because she has so little to go and hang her hat on.
Yeah, well, this wasn't the only instance this weekend where she was doing stuff like that. And you see, I do some stuff, obviously, I do some stuff with some retired professional athletes. So I'm in I'm around the Vikings folks sometimes, and her dad used to be was a columnist, and way back when he was a beat writer for the Star Tribune for the Vikings, and she's got a picture up this weekend of her with Bud Grant, because she was up at Game Fair and did talking about her outdoors and conservation plan, and then all of a sudden, just out of the blue, fires up this photo of her with Bud Grant, who's been deceased for 3 years, and everybody kind of called her on this one, like, what, okay, it's pretty obvious what you're doing. I'm guessing he wouldn't like you using this photo for votes. I saw a couple comments that said, I'm guessing he had opinion about biological males competing in women's sports too. But that's just the stuff that she does, and it's just,
yeah.
I mean, it's when I heard you at your show last week, John, you're talking about, when she got booed at Farm Fest and kind of chided the crowd, you said that she's beatable. I think she is. I think it's her race to lose, but I think she could lose it with this kind of behavior. I mean, this shtick is gotten old.
Yeah. Lawyer extraordinaire, Jeff O'Brien, thank you so much for joining us this morning and providing your insight. It's always great to talk and see you, and I look forward to the next time you can come and join us on the show, my friend.
Good to be on. Congrats to the new show, John.
Thank you so much. Well, and speaking of gubernatorial candidates, we're actually going to be talking to an individual who hopes that they can do their part to make sure that Amy Klobuchar is not the governor here in the state of Minnesota. We'll talk with gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth. She's joined us on the couch here at the Center of the American Experiment Studios. We'll do that in just a moment here on the John Justice Show. I want to take a second, though, and just talk about NutraWave for just a moment. I went out and saw Dr. Bob on Friday over at his offices, because I'm starting a brand new round on this program, because the program has absolutely changed my life for the better. Look, you go and try to lose weight and it all comes back. You lose some pounds and then you go back to eating regularly and you put more weight back on than when you started. It's the whole yo-yo diet. Listen, all of this will go away. It all stops today with the NutraWave program. NutraWave turns on the fat burning and it reignites your energy. It's all natural. There are no pills. There are no shots. And really, there's no excuses. If you've been looking to try to finally get the weight off for good, this is the program for you. I lost 22 pounds in my first round on the program. And one of the most amazing things about it is that it changes your relationship with food. I still love food, but I know how to continue to enjoy eating the things that I love without putting the weight back on again. And now I'm looking towards getting to the actual weight for a dude my age and my size. Already, along with me, 31,000 people across the metro, they've tried everything else, and they haven't had success until they went with the NutraWave program. That's where they got their life back. Right now, there's a $300 free gift awaiting you for just calling NutraWave today to check out the program. Call today at 952-952-8685. That's 952-952-8685. Mention the word strike. You're going to get a truth metabolic session and free red light therapy session absolutely free. It's a $300 value. You have nothing to lose. And again, everything to gain except the weight. Now, when the slots are gone, they're gone. So call today, 952-952-8685. Head on over to NutriWave, NutriWave.us. And again, no pills, no shots, just results. With NutriWave, there's nothing like it. I cannot say enough good things about this program. Results may vary. NutriWave is not a medical treatment. Consult your physician before starting any new weight loss program. We'll talk with gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth live next on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul. But who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
And they also state that Bach said on the telephone that her criminal defense attorney and the editor of the Star Tribune were making plans as to when to publish the article to garner the most strategic advantage.
So that's like pretty high level collusion between the Star Tribune and this woman who's sitting in a jail waiting to be sentenced for her role in the fraud scheme.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Most Minnesotans, based on our polling, would agree.
It was temporary from the beginning.
It was temporary.
Temporary COVID.
Going to people who don't need it. They can work, or they're illegal immigrants.
Yep.
Shouldn't be benefiting from the system anyway.
Yep, they're able-bodied or they're not Americans.
We're going to kind of roll through a few of the senators' opinions on why this funding is so crucial. Let's roll it.
Work reporting requirements don't work. The Trump administration and Republicans in Congress are forcing states to adopt these work reporting requirements so they can kick enough people off Medicaid to justify the tax cuts they gave to billionaires.
The single purpose of this is to kick people off of their health insurance.
Except to corporations and super rich donors, the only people who stand to gain from this deal.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit americanexperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Education Minnesota came in and testified against that bill.
Yep.
Even though it included public schools, and their basic thing was we are testifying against this because it'll decrease the enrollment in public schools, decrease teacher funding in public schools, and basically take money away from our teachers in public schools. And when they did that, what just became so crystal clear, and every DFL representative fell in line, repeated the same anti-Trump talking points. What stuck out to me was like, wow, you really don't care about the kids.
Nope.
You really, really don't. The only thing you're prioritizing is public school enrollment, not for the sake of we need more kids in public school because they'll get the best education. The justification was we need more kids in public school so that our teachers can get paid in public school.
Yeah, they should be happy that there's going to be more private money under this program going to schools, more money in general. But they're not, because some of it might go to private schools. Meanwhile, in other states that are run by Democrats, they did opt into this program, and their kids are going to benefit from
Virginia
it. But here
did.
In Minnesota,
New York did. Michigan, Colorado. You had these other states that are blue states that were opting into this program. And I think just the most jarring part of it was listening to these DFL representatives, this DFL testifier from Education Minnesota, and going, wow, the point is not educating our children.
Commentary from Representative Max Reimer, our frequent Freedom Friday guest, here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. He'll, of course, be in on Friday morning as well. And if you missed Friday's Freedom Friday show, it was one for the ages, I think it's safe to say. I had multiple individuals after the show on Friday tell me that they had to pull over the car while they were listening because they were laughing so hard. Yeah, to say that it went off the rails would be an absolute understatement. So jam-packed show today, especially ahead of the primaries tomorrow. Of course, you can already go and vote, right? But I'm waiting until tomorrow to make it official. Joining us on the couch here at the Center of the American Experiment Studios, I am very pleased to welcome into the show a gubernatorial candidate, Lisa Demuth. Good morning, Lisa. Great to see you this morning.
Thank you for the invitation. Great to see the new place here, John.
We're getting our microphones in a row. We got it. We're good now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So listen, let's just start here. How are you feeling heading into tomorrow? I know some of the polls have been tightening over the course of the past week. Are you putting much stock in those polls? What is your general mood about your campaign as we head into tomorrow?
John, we've got 1 day and 12 hours before those polls close. And yes, I have a countdown on my phone. Thinking about it, and we had our team meeting last night with our campaign team. And I think the way that I'm looking at this, we've got all of today, all of tomorrow, but we have done the work as a campaign. When I entered this race last November, I had said, let's work as hard as we can and do the right thing for the people of Minnesota. And I never want to have regrets. I don't want to look back and say, oh, we should have done this. We have done absolutely everything that we could to connect with Minnesotans and give Minnesotans the chance to be involved and choose who is going to go up on that November ballot and turn the state around, really. So I think the best way to explain how I feel is really excited and at peace that we have done absolutely everything. I think the people that I've gotten to meet because of this process, that's my favorite part of getting to do this. Everyday Minnesotans. I was in Grand Rapids just a week ago at their parade, and people couldn't believe that I bothered to come up that way. I said, well, you're part of Minnesota. Why wouldn't I be here? So I feel really good about it.
You guys have worked really hard. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. From my perspective, it seems as if the Lisa Demuth campaign has worked really hard to develop that grassroots level support. Things have dramatically changed. You can reach individuals in ways that you never could before. A lot of individuals take advantage of that and try to push those new methods as opposed to going more traditional routes. But it seems as if you've taken kind of a more traditional route to your campaign. Am I right or wrong on that?
I think a little bit of both. And so I think it's an all of the above. I'm really glad that we can't do robocalls here. So it's forced us to contact people that have wanted to be a part of change here in Minnesota, wanted to be a part of the Demuth Wilson campaign, saying, how can we be involved? Yesterday at my hometown parade, I had well over 50 volunteers just walking with us. Great reception from everyone. We've had thousands of phone calls made by grassroots volunteers over the last number of weeks. And now, especially leading in, we've had a really heavy focus this weekend. I think it's that traditional, that voter contact, that Minnesota contact, and then, of course, using the technology that we have, digital and some of those other ways to find voters and to hear from Minnesotans.
Well, speaking of technology, we have a means of listeners to go and ask you questions. We call it the Blaster Line here on the John Justice Show, 612-584-4565. A friend of the show, James, has a question for our guest this morning, Lisa Demuth.
Good morning, John. I have a question for Lisa. I was at the Candy, Ohio County Fair in western Minnesota this past weekend with family members, and one of the themes that seemed to keep coming up was how many people are talking about leaving the state and moving to South Dakota and other states, from the mayor's race in Wilmer, Minnesota, all the way up to the National Republican Party there at the fair. And I wonder if she can address that and what she would do to help change people's minds. Have a great day.
Let me add something to this before you answer, James, because it's something that I struggle with here on the show, and that is we talk about all of the issues that we're dealing with here in Minnesota, and those issues have driven a lot of people out of the state, and the last thing that I would ever want, for me personally, just as, my role as a talk show host, would be to, want to encourage somebody to go and leave the state. And yet, because of the policies and things we talk about on a daily basis, people are. So what do you say to individuals like James, who's, talking about people are leaving, moving to South Dakota and other states? If you can address what you would do to, highlight the difficulties, but also to tell people, hey, don't leave Minnesota.
I would say don't leave the state of Minnesota yet. And I think James brings up something that is on a lot of people's minds. Because of our tax structure here, because of the overwhelming policies, even, John, think back to when people used to move here to Minnesota because of our great educational system. And you've already mentioned that as a concern, our failing education here in Minnesota. But I would say don't leave yet. Give us a chance. We have had Democrat control in this state for far too long, over 16 years of Democrat control that has really driven our state down. It has driven taxes up. We're not seeing those results, but it is time for us to pull together and make the changes needed, that there is hope. We need to remove that taxes. When you think of taxes, overall, we are still taxing Social Security. We're one of the few states that still does that. So we're saying to our seniors, you know what? We taxed you once. Watch this. We're going to tax you again on your Social Security. That is something that needs to be changed. I've tried to work on that. There have been little changes, but we couldn't get enough through the legislature. But the other thing about that is on our small businesses, on the paid family leave, the mandates, it is so much pressure that if Minnesotans finally stand up and say, this is too much, we want to stay, but we need changes, I believe there is hope in this next 4 years with a changeover in not just the person that is the governor, but the party. We've got to have that change because it's been too long of Democrat control with too deep into the bureaucracy that's here. It's going to take a clean out, and I'm ready to do that.
You mentioned paid family medical leave, and I actually have a few items in my stack, so I'm glad you went and brought this up. Talking with gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth. There was a story last week. A Baxter, Minnesota mother said that she has spent months waiting for final payment from the state's paid leave program after making a change to her approved application. She says, I took the extra week confident that I was going to receive that payment, and it never came. The delay has left Horner and her family without an expected $1,425 payment for nearly 3 months. This has forced her to make difficult decisions, she said, despite repeated assurances from the state that payment would arrive. And let me just play. This was a clip from current Governor Tim Walz talking about paid family medical leave and the expectations that people can have of the program, which certainly runs counter, his comments do, to what this woman is dealing with.
For you that allows you, again, to take care of what you need to take care of without being forced to choose between your family, your bonding with your child, your own health, and your economic well-being. Because in Minnesota, you can do both, and we've proved that time and time again.
Now, I have further questions about paid family medical leave and some of the things that have been said over the course of the past week. But, here we have another Minnesota program under DFL leadership that's having trouble just functioning the way that it should have. What are your thoughts on what this woman's dealing with?
So that's not an unusual story. We are hearing those stories. I've got a constituent in my area that was going to take a few weeks for the bonding, the parental leave that you can take. It's a dad, and he was going to take that. He was denied. No answers, couldn't get full answers. He was denied, no reason for it. And so we're hearing all of these strange little stories. Someone that was trying to get coverage while they had breast cancer and were repeatedly denied, filled all the qualifications that you needed. I think what that points out, John, is the fact that businesses that value their employees are going to find a way to do this and to take good care of their employees.
Yeah.
But when the state comes in and says, here's a mandate, it's redistribution of wealth, it is one size fits all or one size really fits none, these are the problems that we see. One other thing, thinking of paid family leave, I was at Farm Fest last week talking with some farmers, and agriculture seasonal workers were not exempt from this. And so what they were saying, they were giving me, the person I was talking to was giving me a story of an employee that has been long time on their farm that had to have surgery, kind of came up a little bit faster, and they would have just made it work. But now with the paid family leave, instead of taking the number of weeks that this particular employee would have taken, the employee said, well, I've been paying into this, so I'm going to take the full 12 weeks. And so it really is involving a change in the culture of work environments that isn't healthy either.
So I'll play conspiracy here. So we know, because this was another question I wanted to ask you. We know that it was announced that there would be no tax increase on paid family medical leave next year. But within that same announcement was the fact that the expectation is it's going to have to be raised in 2028. You're already shaking your head. I think I know what the answer is, but I'll pose it anyways. The assumption here is that it's an election year. They didn't want to go and raise the tax right now. Do you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely agree with that assessment and more. So finish.
So with that being said, and it's the question we brought up last week when we were talking about it. Okay, what does this mean for the program for the coming year? And is it possible that at the state level, they're being more stringent on the requirements to receive these benefits that people are forced to pay into because of the fact that they're not raising the tax next year? Am I into conspiracy territory, or do you think there's some logic there?
I think there's some logic there. We can always kind of hang out in the conspiracy area, but you're right. It's an election year. The last thing they wanted to do is raise a tax right before people were going to be able to vote. One other thing is we were negotiating, and remember, for your listeners, I have served as Speaker of the House the last 2 years. So as we were negotiating toward the end of session, it was found that there was $70 million left over from the IT setup and the program setup for paid family medical leave. They had put in a number of dollars to make sure that happened. It came in under budget, which doesn't that bring a question? How did this come under budget?
How did that happen?
But it did. So as we were looking, and I'll take you a little bit different in direction. I hope we have a few minutes for this. Perfect.
This is the luxury that we have on this new iteration of the show. So
I love this conversation, John. That's what I like. Because we were looking at trying to modernize our IT systems within our social services program. So for your listeners, the way this works is programs, when people are applying for SNAP and some of those other things, the counties administer those programs that are state required. The IT systems, the computer systems that these counties are working on are 30 plus years old. So if you remember back with me, green screens, spinning dials, delay after delay. This is something that with an $18 billion surplus, those IT systems that are required by the state absolutely should have been updated back then. Democrat control said, we're not going to do it. We were able to infuse some dollars this last year into the modernization, the SSIS modernization. And I give a lot of credit to Representative Paul Torkelson, who has fought this battle for years. And we were in the same room with the governor and other leaders saying this has to get done. When I found out about the $70 million, because it was originally for IT in the paid family medical leave, and we're looking at another IT program, I said, why don't we take that $70 million and infuse it over here where we need to fix into the modernization, IT, state level. It made sense. I was told, no, we're going to need that for the paid family medical leave. That way we don't have to raise taxes as fast.
So as governor, what would you do? What can you do about paid family medical leave moving forward?
I think we're not, we wanted it gone. We wanted it in the beginning where it would have been limited to the size of business, or it could have even been an opt-in. Ideally, it should have been a private market and a credit potentially given for businesses. Can't go back that far. What we can do is tighten the requirements, tighten the, you're starting to hear about that potential fraud or loopholes or people misusing the program. Those need to be tightened immediately. And then it's going to take changes by the legislature and a motivated governor to watch those programs change. It should be still a potential opt-in. We should not be doing this for seasonal workers. Our schools are struggling under this because of both the cost and backfilling those positions. So there's many things that we're going to need to look at, but changes to paid family medical leave, still taking good care of employees, but allowing more flexibility for employers is what we absolutely need to do.
There's a brand new piece up at AmericanExperiment.org as we continue our conversation with gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth. I want to mention, too, that Senate candidate Michelle Tafoya will be joining us just after the top of the hour. So at the recent Farm Fest gubernatorial debate, each of the candidates, yourself included, asked the question about fraud in Minnesota and what they were going to do about it. Amy Klobuchar stated her response as saying the people of Minnesota were ripped off. This was wrong, and it should have been caught earlier. And yet, between January of 22, the day the FBI raided Feeding Our Future, and December 31st of 2025, right before she launched her campaign for governor, Amy Klobuchar issued 1,085 press releases, and not one of them addressed the Minnesota fraud scandal. Your thoughts on that? Because this has been a point of contention for myself and others, that she says she wants to do something about fraud. But the question that I have, and again, others have had, is, well, why weren't these things done before, especially under Tim Walz? Does she still, support what Walz did as governor? But the fact that she really hasn't spoken about this at all up until now as she's running for governor.
Now that she's running for governor is when you're hearing her talk about fraud. I have said since Feeding Our Future came out, why wasn't our Senate delegation from Minnesota doing anything about the federal loss of our dollars here in the state? And you didn't hear anything from Senator Klobuchar. You didn't hear anything at all. We were fighting the good fight here in Minnesota to try to get the attention on how much fraud there was. Democrats didn't want to talk about that. When we took the tie in the House in 2025, I established the Fraud Prevention Agency Oversight Committee. So at every single week, Democrats and Republicans, but a Republican chair, Kristen Robbins, Republican majority in that committee, were talking about fraud, looking at fraud, and bringing it to the public's attention. They did a phenomenal job. Democrats could no longer say it's not really happening. They still tried to say that, but they couldn't say that it wasn't really happening. But you never heard anything about Senator Klobuchar. Now she's claiming that fraud is bad. That's how she said it at. Mm-hmm. Fraud is bad. She said it at, I think it was Farm Fest. And yeah, it's bad. It's a theft of our dollars. And it's time to do more than just talk, which is what I want to do as governor. Choosing commissioners that will be held accountable. And it's going to take a change in the party, meaning me as governor, not another Democrat as governor, to be able to clean house in the way that it needs to be. There are layers of bureaucracy that are going to have to be cleaned up with this in every agency. I will say, being at Farm Fest, the ag department is the one that has minimal fraud. And when they had Office of Legislative Auditor reports that made some suggestions, they actually took those to heart.
Wow.
And did that. You look at all the other agencies, and the response to those reports are usually, we disagree with the report.
Well, and to your credit too, David Hoke, who's worked with Nick Shirley in exposing this on the social media level in terms of the fraud, he actually threw his support behind you recently, right?
He did. Yes, I was really grateful. I think what David Hoke and Nick Shirley did here in the state of Minnesota, exposing the fraud, that it could no longer be ignored by the nation, really, set us on a trajectory to finally change this. I was grateful over the last few days to receive the endorsement from David Hoke. He said that you're the only one that can do this. I fully am endorsing you for governor.
Let's lightning around a few things, a few items here. First off, I had a blast that rolled in from a friend of the show, Lori, at the start of the show when I was promoting your appearance today, and they were wondering. We haven't talked much about the Met Council in a long time. They seem to be flying under the radar while they still go and spend money on things like light rail, but they've certainly been a thorn in the side of Minnesota for a long time, even if they haven't been dominating headlines. Thoughts on the Met Council if you were to be governor? Anything that you would like to do with the Met Council, given that position?
I think when you look at how the Met Council started years ago, looking at wanting to make sure there was sewer and, the things that made sense, and where they have grown now, this is a perfect example of a council that is unelected and appointed under Democrat control for over 16 years. Too long of Democrat control has allowed this explosion with very, very little oversight or accountability. I think it's time to look at the purposeful use of the Met Council. Are they still serving the purpose, or is it time to look at reimagine or disband.
Let's talk for just a moment about one of the other gubernatorial candidates, Mike Lindell. I'm curious, were you frustrated that President Donald Trump threw his endorsement behind Mike Lindell's campaign?
I was surprised when that came out. It came out early on a weekday morning, very, very early, but they have a friendship. And so if that was a friend-to-friend endorsing without really looking at the depth of the political climate here, I think maybe that is the direction it took. We knew that could happen, but it did. And I think what we've seen from that particular candidate now going forward with an amnesty plan and all of these other things.
That's
and having
my next question for you.
Yeah, and then having to walk that back. But when you're going to have people that have chosen to come here illegally, that is breaking our law. And so instead of rewarding that behavior, I would be the first one to say at a federal level, we need changes with our immigration law. But that is a federal level. That is not anything a governor can do. And I have fought over the last 2 years to change things here in the state of Minnesota to the best of my ability. So remember, 1/2 of 1/3 of state government. We ended taxpayer funding of illegal immigrant health care and did more to reduce our spending. Minnesota cannot be that magnet for illegal immigration. And so I think that other candidate is really off the mark, and we've seen and heard that across the state.
Well, let me add one more little element to this. What do you say to those potential voters who, take President Donald Trump's endorsement incredibly seriously? And they may be thinking, well, Trump endorsed, him, and I want to roll with that. How do you reach out to those particular individuals to say, no, I'm the better choice in your mind?
Yeah. And I've had some of those conversations as I've been around the state since that endorsement, and then especially since the amnesty plan. And my grassroots callers have had some of those same conversations. And I think when people have the conversation and they look at the depth of it and the difference between what I have already done for Minnesota and what I intend to do for Minnesota, having that conversation, they can take the president's endorsement, but then they can look at where we need to go. And I know we have changed some voters.
Lastly, and I've been doing this little exercise with all of our candidates. So at AmericanExperiment.org, we put together a list of how Minnesota's been on the wrong track. These are essentially 5 or 6 indisputable claims. These are all backed up by facts, and you can go to AmericanExperiment.org and see all the data points relating to why these are all true statements. First off, we do know that a majority of Minnesotans, some 68%, believe that we're on the wrong track. But let me run through the list, and then gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth, you can basically choose your own adventure, which one that you want to comment on as we wrap up our conversation this morning and head into hour 3 here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. So we have kids in Mississippi can read better than kids in Minnesota. Minnesota is now a below average state economically. 55% of Minnesota students can't do math at a grade level. Minnesota taxes small businesses more than any other state, and Minnesota's government let fraudsters steal over $9 billion. Which one would you like to comment on?
Okay, choose your own adventure is what the topic is, right? I would choose, John, I would choose all of the above. Can I just give you a point on each one?
Go for it.
Okay, you hit them. First one, Minnesota kids are underperforming even compared to Mississippi kids reading. In the legislature, we did something called the Science of Reading, or the READ Act, improving our investment in literacy for schools. That is what Mississippi did. We never should have gone away from that. I've already proven that we can improve literacy scores by investing in the right way. I want to see more of that, investing better in literacy. So that's what I would say about that comparison. Second one. What's your second?
Minnesota is now below average state economically.
Economically, it means that our dollars have been lost in fraud. We have seen people that can leave the state with wealth do so. The best thing we can do to improve our economic outcome here is reduce our permitting, reduce our regulations, still keeping businesses and people safe, reducing our taxes, ending fraud, and giving incentives so people want to both start choose, and thrive in business here in Minnesota.
55% of Minnesota students can't do math at a grade level.
It is time to really get down to the basics on every part of our education. Yes, reading first. Kids need to know how to read first, because first they learn to read, then they read to learn, and we have to focus on that. Has to start with the basics, but making sure that our educators coming out of our universities are ready to educate kids and not teach them ideology. And we have to get back to good, solid teaching practices, empowering schools at a local level, because local control is the best way we can do things.
We tax small businesses more than any other state.
We need to reduce taxes on every single level, including our small businesses. Think those mom and pop shops that maybe want to just have a business and grow that business. The other thing we have to do is we have to make it easier for businesses to be transferred, that transfer of wealth or business, both in agriculture, in other businesses. So small businesses, medium businesses, large. We can't tax people out of wanting to get those to the next generation if its family members are moving forward.
And of course, we've talked a bunch about this, but Minnesota's government let fraudsters steal $9 billion. And I think you and I both know it's probably a lot more.
It probably is. And every time I say, there's $9 or $10 billion of fraud, and I'll have Democrats come back at me and say, it's not that, it's only whatever. And my question for them is, how much fraud is okay? Because in my mind, no fraud is okay here in the state.
Gubernatorial candidate Lisa Demuth, last words before I let you go and you head into a primary day tomorrow. I imagine the next 24 some odd hours are going to be busy for you.
They are so good. I'm really excited as soon as those polls close to know where we are at as a state. I'm ready to defeat Amy Klobuchar in November. Looking forward to that. What I would say to your listeners, voters, if you have not voted, please do so. Make sure that you're connecting with people in your circle. Make sure they vote. The primary matters just as much as the general.
Really enjoyed the conversation this morning. Good luck in the primary tomorrow. It was great talking with you once again, and it means a lot that you came by. So I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Wanted to see the new digs here, John. Thank you very much. If people want more information, lisa4mn.com, lisaformn.com.
Sounds great. Friend of the show, Hank Long's been hanging off in the wings. So hello, Hank. Good to see you this morning. Next time we got to get you on. All right, coming up in just a moment. I see her outside the studio. We're going to welcome her in to the sofa here in the American Experiment studios. We have Senate candidate Michelle Tafoya joining us next. In the meantime, here's a few minutes commentary from friend of the show, RNC Committeeman A.K. Kamara, here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul. But who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
This woman
I didn't know this about
has had a bunch of credible allegations going back years to when she worked for the city. She's been doing this behavior, right?
This is the St. Paul mayor who's now under investigation, and we'll get to the details here in a moment.
She used to be with St. Paul working as staff, and she had this falling out with a friend who filed a harassment restraining order against her.
So, St. Paul Mayor Cowley Hurt under investigation, sexual harassment following complaints from the police chief Axel Henry. I get that reversed. The investigation going on since April involves inappropriate text messages and other alleged incidents, raising concerns about transparency and the use of personal devices for government business. Her has stated her commitment to cooperating with the investigation. What's interesting about her statement that she released on Wednesday, there was no denial at all. She took the stance of, people just don't understand my humor, my sexy humor. I'm adding the sexy part in, but that's what it is.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit americanexperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
There was just a video that went viral the other day of Nick Shirley talking to a woman in New York who had been sexually assaulted. And she said, I would rather that person doesn't spend the rest of their life in jail, and I don't have an answer of how to do that. But I don't even think they should even go to jail because our jail system is so messed up. And he was like, well, then how do you stop it from happening? Well, I don't really have an answer. Go back to Mayor Lynch, mayor of whatever county is that the same type of logic can be employed, that you're looking at, well, they were convicted and they're going to have to wear that mark. But really, do we think it's fair that we would send this person to another country because of this? And to me, that type of suicidal empathy leads to the destruction of our society.
Think about it. Black and Hispanic students in Mississippi perform better in reading and math than Black and Hispanic students in Minnesota. And Mississippi spends thousands of dollars less per student than Minnesota. Mississippi spends less money, gets better results, and their achievement gaps are closing, while ours are getting worse. Think about it. It's time for real education reform, so Minnesota can catch up to Mississippi. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
When you look at these red states, particularly that, you say they're not in play, but they're all close. Do any of them keep you up at night?
No, I tell you what, not much keeps me up at night, to be honest with you, Manu. The one thing that gets me excited when I think about this election cycle on the map is Minnesota. I think Minnesota, we have a real shot with Michelle Tafoya. She has done a really good job on fundraising. You spend money there? We just did an event for her. We've done 2 events for her recently, one in the state and one a national call for the donors. What we know without question is she is within a point of the lieutenant governor right now. So if we can continue to let her show the contrast between the 2 candidates, I think Michelle Tafoya is the kind of Republican that can win.
You think you'll pick up seats?
I think we could have a 54-seat majority.
Okay.
Not 46, not 53.
That was NRSC Chairman Tim Scott talking about his hopes for Michelle Tafoya in this Senate race here in Minnesota. And I am very pleased to welcome to the sofa here at the American Experiment Studios. We do have Michelle Tafoya. Good morning, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining the show today. I greatly appreciate it.
Be here, and congratulations on the new digs and all of it, John. This is great.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. It certainly has been a roller coaster month for the show, but a fantastic opportunity timing wise with the primary tomorrow, with all the guests, and of course being able to invite you in ahead of tomorrow. Let's just start there. Polls look really good for your race. You've obviously been working hard. What's your confidence level heading into tomorrow?
I never count my chickens before they're hatched. I just never have, and I won't. And we're going to run through the tape and continue to work here today as hard as we can. I'd like to sit here and tell you, yeah, we feel great, and I'm optimistic. But we're going to continue to work hard. It's the only thing that I know how to do. And it's amazing. The harder I work, John, the luckier I get.
Did you anticipate the level of national attention that the race is receiving? Like, did you anticipate this when you decided to run for Senate?
I think it's kind of like Jay Feely and others who are running for office across the country, that when you've been on a national stage, you've been in the national spotlight, there might be a little bit more attention. But this race, I think, is going to get even more attention starting tomorrow. This is a race that Republicans can win here in Minnesota. We intend to, for the first time in 20 years. And that's going to be a story nationally. And we firmly are planning on making it so. We think, people look at Minnesota and they say, they didn't even vote for Reagan. Well, there's a reason Minnesota didn't vote for Reagan. If you recall, there was a Minnesotan running against Ronald Reagan. So, this state it's a purple state. I really believe that. I believe if people come out in the way that they're talking about it, this is going to be an even bigger story come tomorrow.
If you were to be victorious in the primary tomorrow, what's more important in your mind? Is it increasing the GOP turnout, or is it connecting with those potential crossover Democrat voters and independents? Where is your focus?
All of the above. It has to be all of the above. We have to have every Republican come out and vote for us. And I've already talked to Democrats who are ready to vote for us. Look, and certainly independents as well. we cannot continue to keep hiring or electing the same people who brought massive fraud to this state, who brought us to this place of national embarrassment. I don't think people want to keep electing these establishment politicians who have driven crime rates up and driven test scores down. And I don't think we want to be showing our kids, hey, accountability is just an option. Don't worry about it. You know, that these people who have done all this should continue to get promoted rather than be held accountable. We need responsible leadership. We need transparency. We need truth. We need people with courage to fight. And that's what I'm going to do. And I think we're going to bring a lot of people across party lines.
Does it matter to you who wins on the Democrat side tomorrow between Flanagan and Craig?
Whenever people ask me this question, and I get asked a lot, John,
I'm sure you do.
But you know what it reminds me of? I can picture myself on an NBA basketball court after the Lakers have beat their first round opponent in the playoffs. And I'm interviewing Phil Jackson or whoever the coach is at the time. And I say, Coach, who would you rather face in the next round, the Spurs or the Nuggets? And they look at me and they go, we're going to play whoever we have to play. So that's how I feel.
How has Michelle Tafoya changed since you first announced and started running, and you sitting down on the Center of the American Experiment sofa today? Is there a difference in mindset? Is there a difference in strategy since you first started? I'm always fascinated to learn just how campaigns develop throughout the course of a campaign. And I'm just curious, how things were when you started compared to how they are now for you.
I think you get a thicker skin every day you're alive, and that you ask for adversity to come your way. And I'm stepping into the adversity. There's a Stoic saying that it's a shame if people don't look for or embrace adversity in their lives or challenges, because then you never know what you're made of. And so I am finding out what I'm made of, and I'm stronger than I realized. I've learned that through my career as well. You go through a lot of ups and downs, and this career of mine was full of up and downs. And now this endeavor, which has very little to do with me and more to do with Minnesota, but it has taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me a lot about this state. And the one perspective that has continued to broaden and evolve is I think unless you get around to all the corners of Minnesota, you tend to forget how beautiful this state is, how amazing the people are, what the spirit of Minnesota is all about. And it has just made me that much more determined.
It sounds like, and if I'm reading into this, feel free to challenge me on it. But it sounds like maybe it was more of a perspective shift. Have you found, Michelle Tafoya, that your desire to run has changed? Like the reason why you got in may be different than why you're running now?
No, I will push back. It's only reinforced it.
Okay.
It's reinforced it.
Okay.
Look, when you're sitting by and you're watching the state that you love, the place where you met and fell in love with your husband, in my case, my spouse, my husband, the place where you raised your kids, the place where I grew my career from the roots on up to the trunk to the branches, and you see it become a national embarrassment. And you talk to voters out there who say, jeepers, I traveled this summer and people ask me where I'm from and I don't want to tell them because it's too embarrassing. And I hear that a lot, John. I heard it a couple times and I thought, oh, that's anecdotal. I hear it all the time. So when the place you love is becoming the butt of a national joke, you want to stand up and you want to help and you want to make a difference. And that's why I'm doing this.
What were your biggest takeaways from FarmFest and being on the debate stage, not just with your potential Democrat opponents, but also those who you face in tomorrow's primary?
I think my biggest takeaway from FarmFest was all of the walking around that I did. It had less to do with that moment in the forum and more to do with talking with the Farm Bureau and the Corn Growers Association and individual farmers. And there was one conversation in particular that I want to highlight from that weekend. There was a guy there who said, I have farming interests in 6 different states. And they included New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Minnesota, I think Iowa, and maybe South Dakota. And I said, well, which one is the easiest one to deal with? And he said, Arizona. They have a list of rules and I check off the rules. And as long as I don't break the rules, I'm good. I'm operating. I'm doing my deal. I'm bringing in my revenue. I said, which one's the toughest one to deal with as a business? Minnesota, hands down. The hoops that we have to jump through continuously. And he said, and to expand here, to get a permit here to expand, I've got to jump through those hoops. Then I don't know. Am I going to get a permit in 14 months or 6 years? I don't know. And that uncertainty is something I can't deal with. So I'm not expanding here. I'm taking business elsewhere. I hear that not just from the agriculture community, John. I hear it from small businesses all over the state who will not expand here because either the regulations are too burdensome, the tax is too punitive, or it's just so much easier and friendlier to go to Wisconsin, Iowa, or South Dakota, or North Dakota.
As senator, how do you go about tackling those particular issues? As we talk with Senate candidate Michelle Tafoya here on the John Justice Show.
Well, I think there are levers that can be pulled in the federal government. You know, you say no to the death tax. You protect step-up values for farmers, step-ups, and you try. Look, I hate to keep coming back to fraud, but we got to keep coming back to fraud because we have lost so much money in this state. And so, yeah, taxes are going to go up. That's a surcharge on the fraud, folks. When you lose that much money, how are you going to regain it? Because it's not coming back from wherever it went. It is not, sadly. And we can try, and maybe we'll get a few $100,000 or a few million, but it's not coming back. So taxes are way too high. There are influences that you can make from the federal government. You can say to Minnesota and every other state in the country, if you don't upfront have fraud prevention, pieces in place for this federal program, and you want federal dollars, and you don't have a way to address fraud, and you have a track record that shows you haven't addressed fraud, and there are no guardrails in place, you're not getting the federal dollars. So get your act together and get these things to where you're not going to be losing people's money and be careless with it. Stewardship matters.
Do you have... Oh, how do I get, I have the question in my mind. I just got to phrase it correctly, right? And I should be able to. I'm a talk show host. Do you have concerns in the back of your mind were you to become senator? Like, is there an aspect of that job that's kind of back there going, I want to do this. I've committed to doing this. My spouse is on board with this. But is there something in the back of your head that you go, this aspect of that particular job is concerning or distressing and maybe not quite that extreme? But is there any sort of negative externalities attached to the role in your mind?
Every job on planet Earth has its pros and cons, right? Even as everyone thought working on Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football all those years was the most glamorous thing in the world.
It wasn't?
It was a lot of work.
Just like radio. It's the best ever.
It was a lot of work. That's what I'm built for. I'm built for work. But I'll tell you what the drawback was with that job, and it will be with any job that I pursue, because I don't take work lightly. If I'm going to get in, I'm jumping in with both feet. And I have 2 kids, and I've missed a lot of baseball games. I've missed soccer tournaments. I missed my daughter's prom this year. I was up in Brainerd at a convention while she was getting dressed for her prom. Those things are tough as a mom, especially a mom who struggled so hard to have kids in the first place.
Yeah.
And they are my treasures. And I don't like missing those big moments. But we make our own big moments at other times. We have found ways, and they understand that I'm doing this for them. I'm doing this for all of Minnesota.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. I want to bring in a little pop culture reference. Have you watched Ted Lasso at all?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Have you seen the latest first episode of the
I have
newest
not
season?
yet.
Okay.
We're waiting.
Okay, so it's got I'm going to spoil a little bit for you, but Ted Lasso has got that woke element to it. I'm able to brush it aside. I think I'm built better for doing that. My wife, not so much.
Yeah.
She'll call it out the moment we see it, and I love it. She does, but there's a moment in Ted Lasso where he's struggling with making a decision, and this was in the trailers, to go back to continue coaching. But he's developed this relationship with his son. Mm-hmm. And the aspect of it was he wants to stay behind because he wants to have that connection with his son. But you can see the son is visibly disappointed. And it's something that I hadn't really thought about, because the takeaway was, the son wants to see his father happy and wants to see his father doing something. They want to see, they're desperate for that leadership. They're desperate for that mentorship. And I thought it was really clever storytelling, but it is It is very true. You know, as a father myself of a 19 and 4-year-old, I absolutely know what you're talking about. But it was a good reminder too that it's important for kids to see that leadership within their parents, because unfortunately in this country right now, too many kids are not seeing that leadership.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And they know why I'm doing this. And we made that very clear. And we had very long conversations, meaningful conversations. And it's part of why I waited until this year. I mean, I've been asked to run for office here in Minnesota for years and years. This timing was right because they are old enough and they do understand. And I think they really appreciate it. I thought that they were going to be a certain amount of mortified, and then one day my son asked, "Hey, my guys at school, they want t-shirts. They want Michelle Tafoya for Senate t-shirts." I'm like, "They do?" And so, stuff like that you go, "Wow, okay." So, but more than that, I mean, yes, I see the world through the eyes of my kids to a certain extent. I want to leave it better than I found it. I think everyone kind of has that feeling.
Yeah.
And so you asked the question that those misses are hard, but can I tell you how many Christmases and Thanksgivings I missed covering the NFL and the NBA? But we found different ways to celebrate in our own little family, settings, and we'll do that again.
There's been a lot written about the Senate race here in Minnesota. It is, one of the most closely watched races. What I want to do is I have a couple of articles here. I want to run through some of the quotes from the article and some of the other candidates and just get your response to them. We'll start here. Former Navy SEAL Adam Schwarzy, he was the endorsed Republican candidate coming out of the convention in Duluth a few months ago, trying to overcome your popularity within the race and the polling numbers. He had a pitch on Sunday, and he framed this as a battle over identity of the party. He said Minnesota Republican values are on the ballot. He described the primary as a contrast of values never before in the Republican primary, and he framed his campaign as a grassroots effort battling Washington influence. Do you see it from that same perspective, and what is your response to a quote like that?
I think there's a wide variety of values in the Republican Party here in Minnesota. And I know I represent a lot of them, obviously. Look, our message is resonating because we've had amazing fundraising. And I'm talking everyone from a donation of 35 cents, which just warmed my heart. I can't even describe it.
How did that come about?
It just, I was looking through the list of people who donated and the amount, and I saw a 35-cent donation, and, or I'll be at a meet and greet and someone will hand me a $10 bill. And I think they want to support. This is what they got, and this is what they're doing to show it. So I believe that there are a lot of Republicans with whom I share a lot of values. There's a lot of crossover. I don't think any party, certainly look at the Democrat Party, they are having a fissure like we can't believe. We don't all agree on 100% of anything. But as Buckley used to say, and I think Rush Limbaugh said it too, you find the most conservative candidate who can win.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the polling and the fundraising to show that we can do that.
There's an interesting dynamic forming, too. I want to get to something in this Minnesota Star Tribune article as I continue my conversation with Senate candidate Michelle Tafoya here on the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment. But you've seen the Democrats taking, and I was talking with Andrew Langer about this in the first hour of the show, you see them taking this, we're a big tent party stance with regard to the Democrat socials in the party. When the reality is, it's really the Republican Party that's becoming the big tent party. I think there's a long ways that we need to go as a party to not tear each other down.
Of course.
Especially when it comes to primaries, and understand people support candidates for different reasons. It's all subjective. Also, when it comes to, views on particular issues that are very important to people. And we'll talk about one of those in just a moment. But it feels as if the Democrat Party wants to lay claim to this big tent title, when the reality is, no, they're actually, through how radical they've become, they're taking the GOP into a larger big tent party. Do you think there's some truth in that?
I do, because I hear from these Democrats who say, I feel like I'm without a home now. Because if we're going to accept that Democrat socialist and that extremist like El Sayed in Michigan, that's just one example. I mean, Mamdani in New York is the central example of where the party has gone. And so, yeah, a lot of these Democrats feel like they are without a political home. Come on over here. It's no No group is going to agree on 100% of the things, but we think we share a lot of Americans' values.
This was in the Star Tribune this morning. Lengthy piece. A Minnesota GOP grapples with familiar divide in Tuesday's Senate primary. You know, they are such a fair publication.
Yeah.
They're so even. They're so even keel all the
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah.
My gosh, talk about a leading headline.
Yeah.
They write this, though. They say Tafoya is a national name and is probably the only Minnesota Republican in the Senate who has the capacity to run a well-funded campaign. This is according to Kyle Kondik, managing editor at Sabado's Crystal Ball at the University of Virginia Center for Politics. So there's his credibility. She has some views that are more moderate than many Republican candidates, which will help in a general election, he said. Tafoya supports abortion access up to 12 weeks of pregnancy, has long described herself as pro-choice. We've, of course, talked about this issue before when we've talked. It's been a while since we've discussed it, though, and I know that this is still an issue that's on the hearts and minds of a lot of voters. Can you give sort of a definitive on that? And what do you say to those potential voters out there where that issue regarding abortion is a bridge too far because of their difference of opinion over it?
Yeah. Well, listen, I certainly respect everyone's opinion on this issue. I would say this, it's like you said, it's been known. My personal stance is I'm running for a federal office, and this issue is now back at the state level, right? Dobbs overturned Roe v. Wade, made the issue a state level issue. And after that happened, Minnesota ran wild with it under their single party rule. I am running for a federal office where this is not necessarily an issue that's going to be voted on. But what I can say to those people is I will vote for conservative, strict constructionist judges. And I'm going to vote against taxpayer funded abortion. I don't believe that people who pay their taxes should be paying for that if they don't believe in it. So why ask any American taxpayer to pay for that? I'm going to vote against that.
Out of curiosity, are you also going to declare yourself eligible for the WNBA draft? If you were, you certainly would be more likely to be drafted than other individuals who have made such claims.
You know what? I remember someone saying, well, what if a woman declared herself eligible for the NBA draft? And I would say, go ahead, try. You're not going to get drafted because you can't compete with those guys. This is different. And you tend to see that more of this trans athlete and sport thing goes toward trans women, meaning biological men who now identify as women, coming into women's sports. You don't see it going the other way.
No.
Because it can't. We watched World Cup soccer. We've watched the Olympic Games. We watched the NHL. We watched the NBA. We know that if there's a woman out there who can compete in the NBA, God love her. Let's go see what, I remember the uproar when Annika Sorenstam wanted to compete on the PGA Tour. Look, this is very simple. Men and women are different biologically, scientifically. And so I couldn't make it in the WNBA if I wanted to. Maybe as a manager, I could be there. I got no game. So the WNBA is meeting a critical moment here. And they have said, we're inclusive. And now some people like Enes Kanter Freedom are pushing them on that. Really? You're inclusive? All right. I now identify as a woman and I want to try out for the WNBA. Let's see what they do with that.
Yeah, where do you think all this is going to go? I mean, Sophie Cunningham certainly brought the issue. It seemed like it had kind of faded away. We had some changes at the federal level, and it looked as if maybe we were done with this ridiculous nonsense because Michelle Tafoya, I still contend that, the issue of boys playing in girls sports is probably, the most clearly... What's the term I want to use? The Democrats, if they're going to be wrong on an issue, they are just completely wrong on this one. And yet they've been able to take advantage of it. Where do you think this is going to go?
The reason they've been able to take advantage of it is because instead of arguing the science and the fairness and the truth of the argument, they just call you names. And they've done that with Sophie Cunningham. And they've done it with my friend Jennifer Say, who's the head of XXXY Athletics. And they've done it with Riley Gaines. And they've done it with Sage Steele. And they've done it with me. They just call you, oh, you're just a transphobic. No. You got to stop conflating these two things. If you want to live life as a trans, God bless you. I'll support you in any way I can. But it is unfair of you then to bring a biological male physical body into a women's sports. And that's why we fought for Title IX, so that women could have their own division, and it needs to be preserved. And it's very, very clear, and it's very simple. And the mystery to me, and it's not really a mystery, John, I want more people to be public about this, pro athletes, amateur athletes, whatever. But I've had people tell me, pro athletes, even retired pro athletes, I got to worry about my brand. So I'm more worried about the girls.
Yeah. All right, let's two things and we'll wrap things up. First off, I want to do my little exercise like I have with all the candidates. So, Wrong Track Minnesota, there's 5 different points available at AmericanExperiment.org. All the data backs up these particular statements. Choose your own adventure. You comment on the one you would like to comment on. So, we have kids in Mississippi can read better than kids in Minnesota. Minnesota is now below average state economically. 55% of Minnesota students can't do math at a grade level. Minnesota taxes small businesses more than any other state. Minnesota's government-led fraudsters steal over $9 billion. You're, of course, running for the Senate, but I wanted to do this with you anyways.
Yeah.
Choose your own adventure. Which one would you like to comment on?
Oh, my gosh. You hear that list and you shake your head and you think, how am I supposed to pick one of those? They are all
I know, right?
Hugely important. Really fast on taxes. I've sat across from small business and large business owners, and they said, Michelle, if things don't change in November, I'm uprooting my business and I'm moving next door. I'm going to Wisconsin. I'm going to North Dakota. I'm going to South, wherever it is, because they can't deal with this punitive They feel like they're being told they're the bad guys for having successful businesses that employ people, that hire people, that inject money into the economy, which is very important. But the other one close to my heart, my mom was a public school teacher for her entire career. What we are doing to kids, what we are allowing kids to walk out into the world with, not being able to read or do math, is in my mind criminal. And it's at the incredible detriment of not only Minnesota, but the country.
Lastly, what do you say to the person listening that is still not sure who they're going to put down for senator tomorrow in the primary? What does Michelle Tafoya say to that person?
Look, I'm the only person in this race who has never run for office before. I had a career. I had a profession. It was phenomenal. I loved it. But this is about more than one person. This is about Minnesota. And quite frankly, it's about this leftward lurch that America is experiencing. That's why I'm doing this. It's not about me. It's about all of us. And, I would love to represent all of us and work on solving those issues. I am not desperate to become a politician. I got into this as a reaction to seeing the direction of this state and this country. And so, folks, this is about all of you, all of us. It's not about me. Let's go do this together, and let's give Minnesota what it deserves. And I'm willing to do that with courage.
Have you been able to schedule in some sleep between now and tomorrow night?
Sleep is essential. So it is the only thing that I'm very possessive of is trying to get a little sleep, because without it, I'm just toast.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the couch at the American Experiment Studios. It's always great to see you. I appreciate the time this morning, and good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right. Joining us next on the show, we're going to be talking with Hennepin County Attorney candidate Diane Krentz. We're going to get to know her, why she got into this race, and what she would like to do to the Hennepin County Attorney's office. So we'll speak with her coming up in just a moment on the John Justice Show. First, here's some commentary you might have missed from Katherine Johnson, Grace Keating, and policy fellow here at American Experiment, Matt Dean, here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
I looked it up, and the percentage of children in poverty in Minnesota is about 10%, which is lower than the national average. So how come somewhere around a third, 33%, say, of children in Minnesota are on Medicaid if they aren't poor?
Sure. My kids are grown now, but I had 3 kids that I raised. And for us, we could make over $100,000 a year, and still our kids would be on Medicaid, if you can imagine that. That's middle class. That's crazy. And, we also, as a state, I think we should really measure ourselves by how few people have to rely on the government for health care, not how many. But if you ask, Governor Walz, he'll say, the more people we feed, the better. The more people on government programs, the better. And that's really how he measures the state. And we really see that in the numbers in Medicaid, which have just exploded.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
We're doing a really big deep dive on Medicaid right now at the center. We're looking at just how the heck this has gotten so out of control in Minnesota. And just like since 2023, okay, we spent $18 billion on Medicaid in the state, okay? Now we are spending $27 billion in this year, okay? And we are spending that on fewer people on Medicaid. So there was 1.4 million people on Medicaid in 2023. Now there is 1.2. So you have to ask yourself, how in the heck can we be spending that much more money on Medicaid? And we're really looking into that because we think a lot of that money is going to people who are dead, people who live in other states, people who are on more than one program. And you are not surprised because you've seen that on so many different programs in the state of Minnesota. But Medicaid is by far the biggest enchilada when it comes to that.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
It's the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment and AmericanExperiment.org, where you can listen to the show, and, of course, on the MixLR app as well. You can email me, john.justice@AmericanExperiment.org, and also leave us a blast. A comment at 612-584-4565, and this one's about our next guest to hear on the show from a friend of the show.
Good morning, John. This is Gonzo. To Diane Krenz. I worked with Hennepin County as a PO for 32 years. I worked with Diane on many, many cases, and I have always found her to be very reasonable, very fair, and an excellent prosecutor. Hennepin County would be really much improved if she were to be elected. And God bless you, Diane. I hope you make it. And it was great seeing you do this. Good luck.
And thank you, friend of the show, Gonzo, for those kind words. And I'm happy to welcome into and on the Center of the American Experiment sofa, Diane Krenz. Good morning, Diane. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. It's great to see you.
Good morning, John. Thanks for having me.
So you were certainly no stranger to the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. You might be a stranger to a lot of listeners on the show. So give us a bit of your background. And, of course, why are you running for the Hennepin County Attorney's Office?
Sure. I went to law school to be a prosecutor, quite honestly. That's what I really wanted to do. And I was lucky enough while I was a law student to get to work in the county attorney's office. It kept me from quitting law school because the people in law school weren't as nice as the people in the county attorney's office.
Oh, goodness.
And they couldn't get rid of me until 2025, when Mary Moriarty started working there and I saw kind of the direction of the office. I have done everything from soup to nuts. I have prosecuted any kind of crime that exists in Hennepin County. I've done gang cases. I did white collar fraud cases. I did career offender cases. And I know that office to be one of the best prosecutors' offices in the world, and it has been for ages. It's the largest public law office, and it's always had the best and have filled with integrity. And what I've seen happen in the last 3.5 years has in essence broken my heart. about things, and it needs to be changed. Need to get back to holding people accountable. We need to get back to actually listening to victims and not focusing on the defendant as the victim. And we need to get back to working with law enforcement, because all the law enforcement relationships have been broken, and I can repair them because all the cops in Hennepin County know me because they've worked with me.
How quickly did you see those changes take place within the Hennepin County's attorney's office upon Mary Moriarty's arrival?
Well, it was prior to her arrival because she had listening sessions with people.
Oh, my favorite listening session.
Yes, oh, mine too. There were people who were trying to play nice, but there were a lot of things that she said that were really out of bounds. For example, she hadn't represented, but she had visited a long convicted murderer who was a juvenile at the time of the crime, and she wanted to continue to keep that case. Even though she was now the elected county attorney, and our office was fighting to keep the sentence for that person.
What would you like to, let's take that and sort of apply what you would like to have seen done in a circumstance like that, as opposed to what you were witnessing?
Well, she should have recused herself. And ultimately, because an acquaintance of mine was working on that case, it wound up getting what we call conflicted out to Ramsey County to be handled. She has a belief that everything that's been done to defendants is wrong. As I said, she calls them victims. And she has gone back and agreed to overturn an awful lot of sentences, costing the Minnesota taxpayers $4.5 million in the case of Marvin Haynes, who was properly convicted more than 20 years ago of a first-degree murder, killing the man who ran a flower shop in Minneapolis. And he never made a peep about a thing until she got into office, and then she agreed to let him out.
Talking with Diane Krenz for Hennepin County attorney. Before I get into more questions about the job in and of itself, talk a little bit about your race, the number of individuals involved heading into the primary tomorrow. What does a voter need to know about this particular primary?
So there's 5 people running for this office. I'm the only woman, whether that's exciting to anybody or not, but I am the only woman. I am the only one who has worked in the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for any significant time period. 2 of the others have been law clerks. And I am the only one also who's worked with any law enforcement or any victims in Hennepin County. I did not seek the DFL endorsement. The other 4 did seek the DFL endorsement. The endorsed candidate is Cedric Frazier. He is a legislator from New Hope, and he is essentially Mrs. Moriarty's pick to replace her. They have a side agreement on him keeping her policies and the people she's brought in.
So with that, observing Hennepin County, the Hennepin County's attorney's office under Mary Moriarty, what's your biggest concern or point of contention? And with that, how would you go about addressing it?
Well, I can't go through everything because I have lots of points of contention. I've said to people, one of the first things I plan on doing is meeting in a big meeting with all the chiefs of police and any law enforcement agency that works with Hennepin County in order to reestablish good relationships with them. Though, like I said, those have been destroyed, and we can't prosecute anybody for anything if we don't have police cooperation and them starting the investigation. So that to me is a number 1 priority. My second priority is to have a group meeting with the entire office to explain that her policies are gone, that we will revert to normal prosecution procedures and that we will no longer be looking for excuses, but we will be looking for accountability.
So I've used this point on the show, and so feel free to disagree with me, but I'm curious to get your perspective. In my own criticism of Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, first off, I've said that she's a true social justice zealot, that in my opinion, it's like a religion for an individual like that. And I have a couple of facets to that, to this, but I can see the visual response. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, because in my view, she really does treat this as if there is no nuance here. This is her social justice view of how these things should be handled, regardless of the circumstances. Is that a correct assessment on my part?
It is. And quite honestly, some of the people that she's brought into the office, many of them former defense attorneys, which I don't have a beef with, because we've had people who were defense attorneys that have come to the office and vice versa. But one of the people she brought in said, we figured out we couldn't change the system from being public defenders or defense attorneys or from the outside. We had to get into the office itself to make the changes. So that's been the agenda from the beginning, is to change those things that make a prosecutor, and to slant it more toward the defendant, who has constitutional rights. And as a prosecutor, I am ethically bound to make sure the defendant's constitutional rights are honored. However, that doesn't mean you also get an extra boost by the way you look at the cases.
Is it fair to put the crime that we've witnessed in Minneapolis, is it fair to point to the Hennepin County's attorney's office as being part of the issue that's been driving that crime? And again, I've often referred to it as a revolving door of criminality coming out of the Hennepin County's attorney's office. So when we see these different aspects of crime in Minneapolis get reported, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at a story right here. A large group of scooter and bike riders, estimated 200 to 300, took over downtown Minneapolis over the weekend. And there's further details here. But is it fair to put some of the blame on the Hennepin County's attorney's office for the crime that's been taking place?
Yes, to some degree. And here's what I would look at. So we've had a juvenile delinquency system which differs from the adults. Kids don't get prosecuted. They're not criminalized except for certain circumstances. And so for many years, people have used kids to commit crimes because they know there won't be as big a sanction, right? And kids sometimes feel like there's not as much accountability if you go through the criminal justice system. The situation now, however, is any juvenile offenders, with some exceptions, but for most of the crimes, are allowed to have 3 shots at diversion before they actually come to court and see a judge. And that word has spread like wildfire, even more than it was before. And so a lot of the juvenile crime that's happening is because there is no consequence. The county attorney's office is not demanding any consequence. And frankly, I would put some responsibility on the fact that the county homeschool was closed, and there has been a diminution, if you would, of what the county has been paying for kids that break the law, the types of programming that we have.
Talking with, again, Diane Krenz for Hennepin County Attorney. As we continue our conversation, is there a place where people can go and find out more about you ahead of the primary tomorrow?
Yes, my website is dianekrenz.com. I have a Facebook page, which is Diane Krenz for Hennepin County Attorney, and I have a very vociferous X following under Diane Krenz MN. So,
I'm curious, when we see the negative ramifications of the policies under Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, just getting into the mind of an individual like that, or people that subscribe to that social justice mentality, you're not seeing positive ramifications on the street. What is their justification for continuing to do the policies that are contributing to these problems?
It's a belief system. So having been at the county for over 40 years, we used to break down public defenders and defense attorneys into several groups. And one of them was hey, my guy deserves the best defense I can possibly give him, but I'm not going to be personally hurt if this person is convicted, right? Because it's the system and it's the process. And then in the public defender's office, especially, there's been what we call the true believers. And these are the people who have a belief system that these people are downtrodden, that it's socioeconomic reasons for crime, that there are disparities and people being picked on for certain reasons. I think it's just a way people think about things and a world view. For me, especially with the issue of racial disparities, what I've seen is the majority of my victims are people of color. I've probably touched anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50 to 100 homicides in my years, and the majority of them are Black, Latino, Native American, or Asian.
Certainly pushes back on the narratives that come from the left. Why do you think Mary Moriarty decided not to continue or to seek re-election?
Well, if you want to know the rumors,
sure, we can do rumors. I'm all about rumors on the show.
The rumor was that she was asked not to.
Okay.
Because it would drag down other tickets. That's what I heard from several sources.
What would be the biggest difference between a Hennepin County Attorney's Office run by Diane Krenz and one run by a Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty, or Cedric Frazier for that matter?
Well, first of all, I believe in actually holding people really accountable, and secondly, in comparison to the other people running, I know the place inside, outside, upside down, and I can more immediately turn that place around. I was also very involved in the union because it was a way to deal with wages and working conditions, right? And so I've had lots of dealings with what we call big county. And if you want a real change and you want it really quickly, I know how to do it. And there will be zero learning curve for me to get back to true accountability, better police relationships, and better victim relationships.
What is your current role? What are you doing right now?
Well, when I retired in 2025, I'd spent the last 7 years doing white collar cases, and so I had a lot of, working relationships with the BCA and the former Commerce Fraud Bureau. So I let it be known to a lot of the guys there, hey, I'm going to be a hired gun for prosecution because in outstate Minnesota, they need people with my kind of experience. So I have a contract case up in Hubbard County, which is Park Rapids. It is an arson insurance fraud case, and they hired me to prosecute that one case. So I've been trying to keep myself busy and definitely kept myself in the prosecution game.
And again, Diane Krenz, a Hennepin County attorney candidate. Where would you like people to go to find out? Again, you mentioned those locations before, but where would you like people to go and check things out?
DianeKrenz.com.
Okay.
Or Facebook, Diane Krenz for Hennepin County Attorney, and Diane Krenz MN on X.
Well, regardless of tomorrow's outcome, I'd love to have you back on the show just to pick your brain about the issues that we talk about relating to, an individual like yourself and the skill set you have. So hopefully we can get you back on again real soon.
Thank you, John. I'd love to.
Thank you so much for the time this morning. Again, Diane Krenz for Hennepin County Attorney here on the couch at the American Experiment Studio. All right, before we wrap things up today, getting close to the end, I do want to share this with you. It popped on my radar overnight, and I have to thank a friend of the show on X for drawing it to my attention. But there's some concern coming out of the Secretary of State's office. Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon, apparently up on the website, there are sample ballots that don't have any markings relating to them being sample ballots. Pam Altendorf has pointed this out online on the official Secretary of State website. Official ballots were posted, no watermarks or other identifiers that this would be a sample ballot or shown. This is prompting concerns over fraud. Here is some of what Pam Altendorf had to share online.
Hi, everyone. State Representative Pam Altendorf. I wanted to get a message out there to the public,
Cool.
and maybe you can help contact the Secretary of State's office, Steve Simon. Also, contact the 15 counties that submitted their sample ballots to the Secretary of State office, and they are marked as like an official ballot. They could potentially be printed. Our GOP House, we sent a letter to the Secretary of State's office yesterday. I kind of was giving them the benefit of the doubt with the primary just being a couple days away, waiting for the response from Steve Simon or someone in the Secretary of State's office addressing this issue, but nothing. We have heard nothing. So with the primary just 2 days away, it's very concerning to me that the Secretary of State's office posted ballots online on the official Secretary of State's website that has no watermark. In fact, one of them says like official ballot. They have the timestamps, everything that a ballot would have that someone could potentially print. Now, we're not saying that's happening or that any, malicious behavior is happening, but it certainly opens the door for a bad actor to be able to do something like that. And when we are here in Minnesota and we're trying to enforce our elections, secure them, and make sure that the public feels confident in our elections, this is not how we do it. So the Secretary of State's office, I would say this is gross negligence. At the very least, all you have to do is provide uniformity, just uniformity of the sample ballots of how they're posted on the Secretary of State website. And again, we have 15 counties. I will post them in the comments. 15 counties have their ballots posted on the official Secretary of State website, and they are the actual ballots that could be potentially printed. Very concerning, especially when a lot of these counties have local races, like county commissioner races, where there's 4 people on the ballot working their way down to 2. So super concerning. I would appreciate a response from the Secretary of State website, but also want to make the public aware this is not acceptable. This is not how we should be doing our elections in Minnesota, and we have to strive better so that we have confidence in our elections and we're doing it the right way. And right now, under Steve Simon, under the Secretary of State, this is gross negligence. It truly is. So contact your counties, county auditors, county attorneys, county people who are doing the elections, and ask them why in the world they allowed their ballots to be even submitted in this manner. And then the Secretary of State, why they put them on their official website. It is gross negligence on both parts. And you, if you're in one of these counties, should be demanding better of your local officials. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.
And listen, even if there's not an abundance of concern over this, there should be. I'm with her in her concern. But even if there are some aspects in which it's totally okay to go and do this, given what we've dealt with here when it comes to fraud in Minnesota, we can't be opening up any opportunities whatsoever. Nobody inside of the Secretary of State's office identified that this could be a potential problem. And so thank you to Representative Pam Altendorf for bringing that up. One of the luxuries here on the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment is the fact that we're not under the clock. So we can go a little bit long if we need to. And there's a couple of items that I want to get to before we wrap things up today. Before I do that, because I have it's a clip that I had for the beginning of the show and I simply ran out of time. So I want to make sure I get it in because it's gone viral. I'm going to warn you, it's Kamala Harris, but she's actually doing the GOP's work for them. And it relates to exactly what we were talking about a moment ago, our election integrity and specifically the Save America Act. Before we play this, though, and before we wrap the show up today, listen, be honest. Your old self would be disappointed in you right now. I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but they would. You used to own the room. You used to have the confidence for photographs, to go out, to meet people, right? Now you don't anymore. Maybe you haven't taken care of yourself. Maybe the stress in life has put you in a position where you've sought comfort in the salty and the sweet and the savory, right? I know that's been the case for me in the past. You can change all that right now. I cannot say enough good things about the NutriWave.us program, NutriWave.us. I went and saw Dr. Bob at NutriWave on Friday because I'm doing another round of the program. I lost 22 pounds. the first time around. And I know that doing a second round on this, I can meet the weight, the optimal weight for a person my age and my size. And this is coming from an individual who loves food. And here's the really good news about it. And an aspect of this I haven't mentioned is that I did the first round, lost 22 pounds, and then I went back to my normal diet, but my relationship with food changed. I haven't put any of the weight back on again while I've gone about just eating regularly, which is why I'm so confident doing another round on the program. There's no shots and there's no pills. We know what that does to people. And for over 13 years, you're talking about 31,000 people, men and women, have lost weight through the program. Right now, you can get a $300 value, absolutely free, a Truth Metabolic Scan, free red light therapy for just calling NutraWave today. You have nothing to lose. Spots are limited. You have everything to gain to get your life back except losing the weight. You'll lose it, and you'll lose it for good. Individual results may vary, but call today at 952-260-1965. That's 952-260-1965. Mention the word strike, and that free, almost $300 gift is yours, absolutely free, just for taking a look at the program. You can get more details at NutraWave.us, but call now, 952-260-1965. And again, mention that keyword strike and get that free $300 valued Truth Metabolic Session and red light therapy session. I've done it. It's incredibly effective. All right, you just heard a moment ago Pam Altendorf talking about official ballots being posted on the Secretary of State's government website. In the meantime, former presidential nominee bestowed, no queens, right? Kamala Harris is actually out doing the job of the GOP in explaining what the Save America Act would actually do, requiring Americans to prove who they are to go and vote. So you'll hear Kamala Harris, and then you'll hear President Donald Trump and his laying out why we need the Save America Act here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
Everybody, so they're trying to mess with your ability to vote, just to break it all down. You've got the Supreme Court. They just sealed the deal with this case that just came up recently, the Calais decision, which basically took the power out of the Voting Rights Act, which was designed to protect your right to vote. So you got the Supreme Court doing its thing. Then this president is trying to push this SAVE Act, which basically would require that for people to register to vote, you're going to have proof of who you are through a passport, which a lot of Americans don't have, or a birth certificate.
Driver's license.
Same point.
Or a birth certificate.
Obstacles
or an
to
ID.
make it difficult for you to register to vote.
Remove all ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat?
He's not wrong. And neither is Kamala Harris. I just cracked me up. Yeah, Kamala, that's exactly what it would do. And this is exactly why we support and hope that Congress gets off their butt and actually goes and does the right thing. Thank you so much for joining the show today. If you missed any portion of today's show, my conversations with Hennepin County Attorney candidate Diane Krenz, we have Michelle Tafoya, Senate candidate, Lisa Damuth, gubernatorial candidate, lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien, talking about how Laimi Klobuchar really didn't have anything to do with when it comes to helping those businesses selling hemp products and delaying the federal regulations that would have harmed those businesses. And Andrew Langer in the first hour of the show. Check out the podcast. That'll be available shortly on wherever you go to listen to podcasts. Also on the MixLR app, where you can listen to this very show. And you can watch the replay at the YouTube and Facebook pages of Center of the American Experiment. Tomorrow is primary day, so I hope everybody gets out to vote. I know that I will, because I like to wait till Election Day to go and vote. Also, on tomorrow's show, we'll preview expectations. We'll get your thoughts from the blaster line over Tuesday's primary. We'll talk a little artificial intelligence with the CEO at Expert Theory, David Gartenstein-Ross, as well. You can leave those comments at 612-584-4565 overnight, anytime, 24/7. You can also email me, john.justice@americanexperiment.org. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. I'll talk to you guys at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Let's close things out with a little Zima Fizz. Thanks so much. God bless. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.
dawn, a voice that lingers when night is gone. Twin cities hum with stories spun. John Justice rides the rising sun.